White on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Matt Hancock defends his decision to appear on I'm a Celebrity as Downing Street joins the chorus of criticism.
Very good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 2nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Paul Hawkins. Your top stories this morning.
Matt Hancock has said his decision to join I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here is part of an attempt to reach people outside of Westminster and to show the human side of politics.
Downing Street last night hit out at the former Health Secretary with a spokesperson saying MPs should be working hard during this challenging time.
Police have named the suspect in the Dover firebomb attack as Andrew Leake from High Wycombe. Although the incident's not been declared as terrorism, officers say it was likely driven by hate.
And Prince William attended the Tusk Awards last night for the first time as the Prince of Wales. The charity, which he has supported since 2005, highlights the work of conservation leaders in Africa.
And as always, we love to hear from you. Be part of the conversation. Let us know your thoughts, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
But our top story, Matt Hancock, saying that his appearance on I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here will be a way to reach out to the politically disengaged, adding that he hopes to show the human side of MPs.
Well, Downing Street last night became the latest to criticise the former Health Secretary's decision, with a spokesperson saying that MPs should be working hard in Parliament or their constituencies at such a difficult time.
The group representing COVID-bereaved families also rebuked Hancock, saying on Twitter that his appearance is sickening and that ITV should do the decent thing and remove him from the programme.
Well, it follows his suspension as a Conservative MP, so we spoke to people in his constituency to see what they thought about all of this.
Is the country fantastic, going well, is it? No. So he's leaving his job to go to do this. And he's earning 80 grand, I think?
I think it's nearer 400.
Exactly. So what he's doing, he shouldn't be in this job.
I'm quite shocked that he's going. It could make him, or it could break him.
I'm not particularly impressed, no. When we vote for MPs, they should be here doing their work for us. And everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people have lost faith in that for quite a long time now, so...
I don't think he should be doing it. It's not good for the public's image, to be quite honest. So, yeah, I think it's time for him to call it a day and move on to some new pastures.
So joining us now, our former Liberal Democrat MP and I'm a Celebrity contestant, Lembic Opic, and showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchia. Very good morning, to both of you. Lembic, can we start with you?
Yes, sure.
Should he be appearing on I'm a Celebrity?
Yes. absolutely.
Why?
Well, I did it in 2010. I wasn't an MP, but I'll be honest, I would have done it if I'd been re-elected. Not because of the reason that he said about reaching out to the public. I did all that for the country in 2010, and it made no difference. Let's be honest. You don't go into I'm a Celebrity to re-engage between politics and the public. But what he should be able to tell you is politicians make decisions, and they have to have some authority to have that relationship with their constituents. And if the constituents, not your non-quantified sample there, there's a bunch of people in this constituency, but if his constituents don't want him, then they elect him out. Then they vote him out. And it's not for us to preach in some sanctimonious, woke way that this man is a terrible former cabinet minister and should now be punished and should be sitting in sackcloth and ashes for the mistakes he made during the COVID.
Yeah, well, is anyone saying that, or are they just saying he should be just serving his constituents?
No, he was told he had to be home contemplating the mistakes he made in COVID. And he did make mistakes in COVID. But that's a different thing. Whether he was a good or a bad cabinet minister is a different matter to whether he should have been in the jungle. And the other thing is, no one can pretend that politicians are banned from reality TV. Have I got news for you? It wasn't strictly necessary.
Yeah, lots of politicians have.
Yeah, and Vince Cable appeared in a cameo in Strictly Come Dancing, so it's a matter of degree. I seem to be the only person in Britain defending Matt Hancock, I have to say, but how churlish is it when you just want to squeeze the life out of someone like Matt Hancock, because a lot of people think he did a bad job as a cabinet
Do you
minister.
think it's more that actually he's been jilted now? It was quite clear that Rishi Sunak's not going to put him back in the cabinet. He sees that he's not going to get it onto any of the select committees. So he's just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to head down to the jungle and cash in. And that might be why a lot of people are annoyed, because he's still getting a good salary, 80 grand or so as an MP. And what happens if you are a constituent and you have a crisis in West Suffolk? You can't get hold of him, he's in the jungle.
Well, three things there. First of all, the principle where they should go in, I made that point. Secondly, his motivation, and you're probably right. He's probably thought, well, I've been a cabinet minister, I'm not going to get back in there. Even though I have to say Nadine Dorries did get to be cabinet minister after being in the jungle, so it's not necessarily a bar. And then that third point, is he messing up as a constituency MP? What's the difference between doing this and being, let's say, far away, like Barbados, like Boris Johnson was, who's also a constituency MP, with your family, for example? If you're away for 4 weeks, far end of the world, you're still not going to be here. I bet you there's a break clause. If something serious happens in his constituency, in fact, I have it on fairly good authority that it's a break clause, then he'll be allowed out to fix that problem. And so it's down a matter of judgment.
Yeah. Stephanie, looking at the papers this morning, Matt Hancock is on pretty much all of them. The Mirror saying the man with no shame. Hancock wants to be jungle VIP, says the Telegraph. Great publicity for ITV.
It is, because, and this is why these producers pick people like Matt Hancock, because they know it's going to get the public talking, it's going to get the media talking, and it's one of those things. I'm a Celebrity is watched by 12 million people per night, so you're going to need those names that are going to be entertaining, and also it's also a chance for the public to get their own back on Matt Hancock. I know he says he wants to engage with the public, but I'm a Celebrity has things like Bush Tucker trials where he's going to be eating stuff like kangaroo testicles. This is the man who broke his own lockdown rules, and this is a chance where the
he can talk about fiscal policy while he's doing that, can't he?
Oh, maybe. Let's see how that goes. But obviously, clearly, viewers at home are just going to get their own back on him. He's saying he's using this as a chance to promote his dyslexia campaign, where he's been trying to get kids in primary schools being tested. But that's not what I'm a Celebrity is going to be about. People are going to want to know the gossip about his affair, about who Matt Hancock really is. So him trying to say he's going to be bringing politics to this reality TV show is no chance at all. And let's talk about the money. He's speculated to be getting £350,000 to appear on this show, on top of the £84,000 he's getting.
Is that the high end of the kind of fees that...
Someone like Boy George is probably going to be on £550,000.
Okay.
And do you get that irrespective of how long you stay in?
Yep.
So you could just say, I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here after 24 hours and take home your £350,000 cheque.
But in The Sun today, he says he will be donating some of it to a hospice in West Suffolk. So he is trying to say there is some good out of this.
Some of it.
I just want to ask Len, A, do you think he should be returning some of his parliamentary salary whilst he's in the jungle? And B, do you think he will be able to promote his cause talking about dyslexia? Because at the end of the day, this is edited, isn't it? They're only going to publish the stuff about him and Gina, you know, cozying up inside Westminster when he was still married, aren't they?
On the first one, It's up to him if he should return the salary or not. I don't think so, actually. It's like saying an MP should return the salary when he's on holiday. Though I have to say, I'm not sure which is harder to swallow, kangaroo's testicles or the forthcoming budget political observation.
There you go.
On the second one, you don't get your message across because you've got 200 cameras, you've got 24 hours a day, you've got a dozen people, a couple of thousand hours of stuff to edit. And I can promise you, if Matt's in there, he's a friend of mine, and I'd say this to him if he was here, if he thinks this is about putting the record straight, rehabilitating himself, dream on. It's a crash and burn programme. Yeah. As you've said, we turn it on to see people suffer.
Yeah.
And that's why I got the first trial.
Did he talk to you before making this decision? Did he consult you at all?
No, I was as shocked as the country. But if he had asked me, I'd have said, go for it. I suspect, I didn't answer that part of your question before, he's probably going for a career change here. There's nothing really left for him in politics apart from suffering. So if he does get a third of £1 million, well, you know, take it, give a bit away and keep the rest.
Do you think the public will target him? Do you expect to see us night after night, you know, and what was the worst challenge for you if the public do want to do that?
Poor Matt. I'm going to throw him to the lions now. Yeah. On the first one, yes, he will be targeted because people will try and get their own back. It'll be interesting to see how many people really hate him. If it's a Katie Price, Gillian McKeith moment, then he'll be made to do it again and again. The irony is, the more he suffers, the longer he'll stay in, and therefore the better he does, which is good for his celebrity career. Secondly, the worst challenge in my view by far was the one I had to do. It wasn't a food one, because I kind of like things like liver and baguettes and stuff like that. So I quite liked some of those
rotten
things.
eggs and eyeballs.
It's just poor man's carbonara, isn't it? but the worst one for me was the one that I actually did have to do, which was you're buried in this coffin underground.
Yeah, the rats.
The amazing thing about these trials is they do appeal to some visceral survival instinct. You do think you're going to die.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, Gillian McKeith in the other coffin fainted. Da, da, da. I fought my way out, and I was quite proud of that. Because I did quite well in it, they didn't vote for me after that, because it's not interesting when someone can do it.
Yeah.
So Hancock's got this dilemma. If he wants to look like a tough guy, he'll get thrown out fast.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, then he'll be in right up towards the end.
I really do think we are seeing the birth of Matt Hancock, the reality TV star, because there has been speculation in the press that this is not the only show that he signed up to. So apparently a few months ago, he signed up to Celebrity SAS on Channel 4, and producers haven't been happy about that. So he's actually going to be in another reality TV show next year where he's going to have to show his strength and test of character. So it seems like he's up in the mood to kind of put himself up for challenges.
As an entertainment reporter, do you find Matt Hancock entertaining?
Yes, I do actually find him quite entertaining.
Yeah.
At
or with?
with that, actually, because he comes across as quite a kind of shy character, but actually he seems like he's quite comedic as well. Yeah. So I think he has this other side to him, and there's been many moments like when he's done karaoke, where he's, you know, doing his swimming challenges and stuff like that. So I think he will be entertaining to watch.
And Lempert, you say, you know, your friends outside of the political spectrum. And I remember when he ran to be Conservative Party leader, was it 2018 or 2019, something like that, and we heard all about his past, and he'd ridden as a jockey competitively, he'd climbed mountains, he's done marathons. He loves a challenge. That is something in his temperament, isn't it, in his personality?
He's a Tory version of me, in a way.
He's going to be with a cheeky girl soon, is what you're saying.
I'll be on that bridge if he's got that plan, I can tell you. He's actually a dark horse, and you're right. He comes across a bit nerdy and a bit shy. In real life, he's really likeable. If you met him in a pub, you didn't know who he was, you would talk to him. So in that sense, the jury's out for me. Has he got the chutzpah, the effervescence to make it work? Does he want to portray himself as a kind of a political Mr. Bean character that gets a lot of work? I'm pretty sure he's planned this now. Since he didn't get back in the cabinet, what's he got to lose? If he re-stands, well, that'll be interesting. Nadine Dorris did, and she got to be cabinet minister, like I said before. But perhaps he's just had enough. And in life's journey, if you can get into the crown jewels of reality TV, and I think that's what The Jungle is, why wouldn't you do it? And in that sense, he might rehabilitate himself in a surprising way.
OK. Lambert Opix, Stephanie Tetchy, thank you both very much indeed.
Let us know what you think at home, of course, as ever. gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is 12 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning.
So potentially thousands of corrupt officers may be serving in England and Welsh police forces, according to a police watchdog. The new report condemns poor police vetting standards and found a culture of misogyny, sexism and predatory behaviour towards female police officers and staff and members of the public is prevalent in many forces.
Basics such as tea bags and milk saw significant price rises in October as food inflation reached a record high of 11.6%. The British Retail Consortium says costs were pushed up due to rising commodity and energy prices and a tight labour market.
A new survey of over 3,000 motorists shows young drivers are delaying car repairs to save money. An RAC poll says 37% of those aged 17 to 24 are delaying fixing their vehicles amid the cost of living crisis. Some 16% of young people are also delaying minor repairs like handbrakes or windscreens.
Matt Hancock on I'm a Celebrity.
Yeah, what do you think?
I do feel for his constituents and I do feel for the COVID-19 bereaved families. I do understand their point of view. I don't find it massively entertaining.
No, I think he's had it politically, so
Yeah,
I think he should just be honest.
He's in the
and just
partridge
quit.
sphere for me.
He's in the partridge sphere. Let us know your thoughts, GBviews at gbnews.uk. We also wanted to talk to you this morning about this British citizenship exam. Apparently, Meghan was studying for it when she was preparing for life in the UK. She was talking about it on her podcast. And she admitted that Prince Harry struggled with some of the questions. Yeah, lots of people have taken it. So I thought I'd put you on the spot, Paul, and indeed you at home. And I'm not going to give the answers. So if you're watching at home, let me know if you find this difficult or hard or if you have the answers, and we'll let you know later in the show. I want to know who made the first coins to be minted in Britain. Was it A, the people of the Stone Age, the Anglo-Saxons, B, C, the people of the Iron Age, or D, the Romans? Is that an obvious and easy question for you? The producer, I can tell you, has got it wrong in my ear.
Is it the Romans?
As have you. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. If you at home know, I'll give you one more. Who built the Tower of London? Was it A, William the Conqueror, B, Queen Victoria, C, Queen Elizabeth I, or D, Oliver Cromwell?
I'm going to say William the Conqueror because he's built lots of stuff.
Ooh, OK. Let us know at home what you think. It's not as easy as you might think. The headlines
What did the Romans ever do for us? Mint coins? Obviously not.
The headlines are all, oh, Prince Harry doesn't know his own citizen, questions, but a lot of us don't. So let us know if you find that easy or not, and I'll let you know later on some of the answers. But let's turn our attention to another big story this morning.
Yeah, it's 6:15. Rishi Sunak insisting yesterday that the UK will always be a compassionate, welcoming country, despite his Home Secretary describing the recent influx of migrants as an invasion in the House of Commons.
Well, here with us is Holly Whitbread, Conservative Councillor for Epping and Thaden. And joining us remotely is the social policy analyst, Dr Rakib Ehsan. Good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Holly Whitbread, because for many in the party, Suella Braverman is a champion. She is defending the public purse, trying to save money, and is tackling what everyone has to acknowledge is a huge problem at the moment. The pressure on her, though, I suppose, is only going to grow as we see some of the conditions inside these centres. What's your view on some of the language, the rhetoric, the challenges that she's addressing?
I think it's a huge challenge. I mean, we've been talking about it for some years now, the real challenge of illegal immigration. And I think what is really important as a compassionate country is that when these people do come in, we process them in a quick way, actually, because we need to, if people aren't, they don't have the right to be in this country, it's important they go through that process quickly. I mean...
How quickly can you do that, realistically, if you have to legitimately check out where somebody's from, their right to asylum, their paperwork, which often isn't...
Well, I think they normally say about a week is about the amount of time that someone would be expected to be in a kind of processing centre. Obviously, what we've seen over recent years is the use of hotels across the country. And I think Suella is right to identify that that is not necessarily a cost-effective way of dealing with these people. So I think she's right to identify the challenges, but obviously it needs to be dealt with in a sensitive manner.
And do you think that she's dealt with it in a sensitive manner by using the word invasion?
I mean, it's probably not language that I would use, but I think it does show the extent of the issue. I mean, and for people living on the south coast of England, there are thousands sometimes of people a day coming into our country literally onto our shores. So she's kind of used that phrase to kind of express the level of the issue, which is a huge concern, actually. If you go out into the streets and ask people what they think, it's a huge concern.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, yeah. Have you, speaking to constituents, have they said to you, yeah, we would use the term invasion?
I don't necessarily hear that word, but I do hear concerns about illegal immigration. Yeah. I think most people in the country, and certainly where I come from, is you want fair immigration. You want people doing the jobs that we need, and actually illegal immigration isn't fair on people like that. So it's making sure that we've got the right people coming into the country, and refugees, because, you know, we are a compassionate nation. We've seen it with Ukraine and Afghanistan. So there is we certainly want to welcome people if it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, look, let's bring in Dr. Ehsan at this point. We heard the Prime Minister, I suppose, sort of kind of trying to retreat from some of the language that his Home Secretary was using by saying we are a compassionate country. Do you think we are? I mean, Sir Roger Gale, whose constituency is where the firebomb attack happened, has said that the problems have really escalated in the last 5 weeks since Suella Braverman has been Home Secretary. Has she changed? Have her policies directly changed our compassion as a nation?
Well, Isabel, I would say that on the whole, we are very much a passionate country, and we do have a rich tradition when it comes to rehoming the world's most persecuted peoples. Under the Conservative government, there have been bespoke resettlement routes set up for Syrian citizens, Afghans who are at risk of Taliban-led persecution, and Hong Kongers who would like to escape from Chinese state tyranny. I think that in this particular situation, looking at the English South Coast, it is experiencing what I'd consider to be industrial scale illegal immigration. Now, we can talk about whether or not the term used by the Home Secretary, invasion, is appropriate or inappropriate. What was really interesting is that the YouGov poll showed that over 3 in 4 Conservative voters from the last general election felt that the use of the word was appropriate. If you look at the broader general population, 43% believed it was appropriate, 44% felt it was inappropriate. So you can say that it's very much polarising language. But I feel that much of the problem is that people are focusing on the language of the Home Secretary, but not really providing solutions in terms of helping the country foster a well-structured immigration system and a well-ordered asylum regime.
Well, we'll talk about the solutions, if you will, in a second, but I just want to follow up on that because I screenshotted a tweet I saw last night. The word invasion demonises asylum seekers, creates a culture of hatred and division that leads to people believing they can firebomb an enemy. This violent rhetoric is the problem. You have blood on your hands for using this. And I just wonder, you know, do you think that you can just dismiss the language as being semantics when we've had such a violent act in the last few days? Do you think they are linked?
Well, I think that she, in terms of the incident at the Migrant Processing Centre, that is currently being investigated by counter-terrorism police. But I think if you're talking about the risk of far-right extremism, that's more down to the fact that we've been experiencing industrial-scale illegal immigration for most of the year. And that is taking place in the middle of a cost of living crisis, where the UK government is spending millions of pounds a day on accommodating what are considered to be illegal migrants in hotels. So I think that, of course, we can have a discussion about the language used by the Home Secretary, but there's a fundamental problem here in terms of our border security, which has been there for some time.
Holly, I know of one woman who's waiting over 10 years to have her asylum application processed in this country. Yeah. Would you agree that, A, that system needs to be sped up vastly, but also that do charities have a point when they say that there needs to be a legal route to claim asylum because to get into this country?
I think certainly in that circumstance it needs to be sped up, and actually that's what we're seeing, and that's why we've got the problems at the moment in the processing centre. So the system clearly needs kind of reviewing and overhauling and sped up in many ways. I think that we need a fair immigration system in this country. As the last guest said, we've got a proud history of welcoming refugees, but people are also conscious of the challenges that we're facing here as well. So for me, it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, but would it be better if they tried to claim asylum abroad in another country, maybe a British embassy, somewhere like that, instead of trying to get here to claim asylum, which is the current policy we have at the moment, which is why they're crossing the boats?
I mean, what's really clear at the moment, actually, is that we've got these kind of awful gangs over the shores who are taking advantage of very vulnerable people. Actually, you've got to be pretty desperate to make that journey. So certainly, I think we need to go down the diplomatic route with other European countries where refugees or asylum seekers are crossing safe countries, and perhaps have more of a conversation and a review there as well.
Holly Whitbread, Dr. Rakib Ehsan, thank you both very much indeed for being part of that debate this morning.
GBviews at gbnews.uk. If you want to get involved in that conversation, it's 6:23. After the break, we're celebrating British Farming Day, which celebrates the farming sector and encourages people to buy British produce. I hear there are gratuitous pictures of piglets.
Look forward to that. First of all, though, here's your Wednesday forecast.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. For many, it's a bright start, but don't get used to that. Wet and windy weather is on the way, and we have Met Office yellow warnings in place for this, an area of low pressure that's really been intensifying overnight out in the Atlantic, going to bring some pretty wild weather to parts of Ireland, but also as it spreads its way up to the northwest, wet and windy weather will hit parts of the UK too. Starting with Northern Ireland this morning, that rain really intense here, and after some recent heavy downpours, that rain could cause some problems. The wind's really whipping up around Irish sea coasts and then over parts of northern England, so we have a warning in place for that, gusts of 55, 60, maybe 65 miles an hour. And then this band of heavy rain moving into parts of Scotland could also cause some disruption here, but almost anywhere in the west, heavy rain making for a lot of spray and surface water on the roads this afternoon. Much of eastern England will stay dry, and it'll still be quite mild, but it is going to turn windy everywhere, and it's going to be another blustery evening with the rain working into the Midlands and then across eastern parts of England during this evening. Following on, there'll be plenty of heavy showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Overnight, that rain doesn't really clear from East Anglia and the southeast. It kind of sticks around. Elsewhere, we will see clearing skies, and temperatures will again drop down to single figures. But with more cloud across the south, it won't be as chilly as the night just gone. That rain, as I said, never properly clears away, and it's likely to come back tomorrow over the southeast of England and parts of East Anglia. So here, a very drab day. Today will be mostly dry until this evening, but tomorrow could be a pretty wet one across East Anglia and the southeast. Elsewhere, some brighter skies, a bit of sunshine, but then showers will develop too, particularly over western parts of England and Wales, where we could see some heavy, slow-moving showers during the afternoon. It will feel a little fresher on Thursday, but this ridge of high pressure promises a drier, brighter day for most on Friday before more rain arrives on Saturday.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back at 6:27. Still to come on the programme this morning, Prince William stepped out for the Tusk Awards last night for the first time as the Prince of Wales. So at 6:45, we'll get all the details from our royal reporter, Cameron Walker.
And at 7:45, with bird flu and food price inflation threatening our Christmas dinners, we'll go to a farm shop to find out how it's affecting them.
And as always, we love to hear from you. Get in touch the usual ways, email or Twitter. A few of you coming in with some quiz answers. Anthony, who's watching from Greece this morning, says the Tower of London was built by William the Conqueror. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well,
yeah.
I'm pleased to report you got that right. You got that right. When it comes to the coins, by the way, the answer was the people of the Iron Age.
They
not
minted
the Romans.
The first coins?
The first coins to be minted in Britain.
That is crazy. Speaking of crazy, on Matt Hancock appearing on I'm a Celebrity, Keith in Crete. I'm loving this. Anthony in Greece and Keith in Crete says, Keith in Crete, why wasn't Boris suspended for being on holiday when Parliament was sitting? I agree on Hancock being suspended, but why not Boris as well?
Julian in Coventry says, why is he allowed to? In the real world, you'd be sacked or have to take unpaid leave. He's just had 6 weeks off during the summer. The rules need tightening. That's a fair point, actually. Why is everybody saying, why is he doing this, when they should say, how is he allowed to? We couldn't just go off to the jungle, could we, and keep our jobs?
No, exactly. And Margaret on immigration, very quickly, whilst I believe the immigration centre in Kent is definitely overcrowded, which isn't safe or healthy, I do wonder where they've been moved to, especially given our own struggles to eat and keep warm.
Exactly.
Our cost of living is still rising every day. GB Views at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GB News.
Now, today is Back British Farming Day, a National Farmers Union campaign to build support for the agriculture sector and to encourage people to try and buy British products.
Doogie Beattie has been out on a farm, taking a look at the challenges British farmers face.
Farming throughout the UK is holding a steady course in politically challenging times. Its ability to keep a nation fed isn't getting any easier. John McClanahan, Deputy President of the Ulster Farmers Union, explains what today is all about and what concerns farming has in the future.
We're very happy to be involved with Back British Farming Day. The Ulster Farmers Union, and along with the NFU, NFU Scotland and NFU Cymru, are using this day to highlight the value of British farming to the British economy and to the British public. This is not about Little Britain. This is not about Britain only eating British. We recognise that there is a need to import some food into the British Isles. There's some food we just can't produce, but it does concern us whenever we see government looking at doing trade deals to import food which we can produce here, which we can produce better here, we can produce to a higher welfare standard, to a higher sustainability standard, to a higher environmental standard with a lower carbon footprint, and ultimately when the playing field is levelled out to a much better value as well.
The emphasis here is not just on farms, but many more businesses in the food chain.
Back British Farming Day, it's not just about the farmers, it's also about we have world-leading processors, food processors across these islands, and we also have world-leading retailers, and we see those from at every level, from the corner shop, the farm shop, right up to the major multiples, world-leading in what they do, and they recognise and they also value the importance of buying British food, putting that on the shelves for their consumers.
Food inflation is high on the cost of living crisis, and the need for food security is now greater than ever.
Yeah, well, we have seen cost-push inflation on food prices over the course of this year, and we don't see very much in the future that's going to change that. It's interesting if you divide that inflationary food price up and look at domestic food inflation versus imported food inflation. We see that imported food inflation is rising at a far higher rate than domestic food inflation, once again highlighting the fact of the need for us to be as self-sufficient as possible in food production. If we go back as far into 1984, we were about 78% self-sufficient in food. Today, that figure is under 60%, and that's concerning for us as an industry and should be concerning for us as a nation.
As contracts on global input costs are renegotiated, the need to be persuaded to buy local may become less of a choice. Dougie Beattie, GB News.
Pictures.
Yeah,
And
there you
Peggy
go.
Pictures you did deliver.
Hey, I didn't promise that. Well, I promised them, and then Dougie delivered them.
Doogie delivered, and they were good, gratuitous Piggy Pictures. Enjoyed those.
They were. It is 6:32. After the break, we're going through the papers with David Mellor and Amy Cameron.
Ooh,
so
that should be
stand
spicy.
by.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Welcome back. Good to have you with us. It is 6:35. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this morning.
Former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has flown to Australia to join I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. The series is starting on Sunday, but Mr Hancock is expected to be one of 2 latecomers to join the camp. He resigned from Cabinet in June last year after breaching guidance on social distancing. He's had his Conservative whip suspended.
Hundreds of migrants have been moved out of an immigration centre in Kent amid overcrowding. Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick says the number of migrants at the Manston Processing Centre had fallen substantially yesterday, with more people expected to be moved today.
A new poll shows nearly 6 in 10 people think the government's not doing enough to tackle climate change. More than a third also say the UK needs to do more to support poorer countries to tackle climate change, an issue that will be discussed at COP27.
Let's go through the papers then with environmental campaigner Amy Cameron and former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Mellor. Morning to you
Good
both.
morning, lovelies.
Look, let's just get it out of the way now. Right, Matt Hancock, David Mellor.
Well, I mean, I was interested to say that he'd flown to Australia. What I want to know is, have they paid for a return ticket? I mean, look, he must be mad. Come on. I mean, at the end of the day, Matt Hancock was a serious politician and could have been a serious politician again.
Could he, though? That's actually a moot point, isn't it? I mean, he's been quite clearly jilted by Rishi Sunak. He can't get a gig on a Treasury
How long is Rishi
or any
Sunak
select...
going to be around? I mean, I like Rishi Sunak, but, you know, no one will predict a long life for any of these people. Even I didn't dare predict a shorter life as Liz Truss had. But, you know, we're not talking about people who are going to be around for decades or even 5 or 10 years. But look, at the end of the day, if you're a serious politician, you do not do "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here." Particularly, the whole thing's a con anyway. I mean, they've got this hotel in Australia, and down the bottom of the garden is this murky pond to which...
Turns out David's got a real insight. I know all this.
How do you know so much?
Because I'm not interested in serious stuff. I'm interested in trash information. You know this. That's the only reason I'm here. You know that.
So are you saying Nadine
So don't pretend you
Dorries
got me
and
on for my great intellectual grasp of the fundamentals of policy.
Are you saying Nadine Dorries and Lembit Opik are not serious politicians?
Well, I've had a little laugh with Lembit, and he said, I thought I was dead. He came in, he just said, I thought you were dead. So I thought, right, mate, we'll have to have a bit of fun at your expense. And I thought it was very bad of him to say that when I had a haircut specially for that.
You look very smart.
Yes, thank
eyebrows
you
and
very
everything.
much.
Well done.
The
you.
eyebrows,
They're
yes.
remarkable.
She notices.
I
This
do
is
notice
wonderful.
the details.
Amazing.
Amy, go on then. Your views on Matt Hancock. It's an open goal, isn't it? Really?
No. You don't know whether to laugh or cry at this story. Because on the one hand, it's completely ridiculous. Do I think it's shocking? Yes. Will I be watching I'm a Celebrity for the first time ever? Also, yes. Because this is just... Matt Hancock's desperation to be loved is overwhelming. And I think we saw that in the wake of his political career, right? Suddenly he was appearing on podcasts with the full Polonek, the full sort of divorced dad, desperate to prove he's got his life back together aesthetic that he was pushing. And I think on the one hand, it's kind of farcical. On the other hand, there is a serious element to this, right? In that he is paid £80,000 a year to represent people in West Suffolk.
Yeah.
I do not understand how you do that.
But that's not his fault, is it? I mean, the system shouldn't... If it was any other walk of life, if you worked in a bank or whatever and you took 6 weeks, you wouldn't
But
be
here's
able to
another
do
thing.
that.
Here's another thing. See, I love the information I get, but I hate when I don't get the information. They haven't told us whether they're flying him back from Australia. The other bit of information they haven't given us, how much is he actually being paid?
Well, reportedly it's around 350 grand.
But do we think this is true, or is this an exaggeration?
No, I think that's likely
Well, if it's
to be true.
350, you know why.
You wouldn't turn that down.
No, actually, I tell you, to be honest, every man has his price, and sometimes mine is higher than 350 grand. I seriously wouldn't want to walk down a street having eaten goat's testicles on the television the week before. And I'd probably be worried that my eating of goat's testicles would not be as good as it ought to be, and I'd be slung out first time anyway.
No, the worse you are,
I
the
would be
longer they
neurotic
keep you
about
in
that.
there.
Well, that's the thing that I feel like he's misjudged, right? I feel like the public are going to absolutely love punishing Matt Hancock.
100%.
I mean, this is a man that oversaw one of the worst death rates from COVID in the world, in Europe at least. And we are in the middle of the COVID inquiry. It does feel slightly like Matt Hancock's trying to preempt that by sort of prostrating himself, goat testicles and all, in front of the British public.
Yeah, the COVID-19 bereaved Families for Justice say they've called it sickening.
For them, this must be incredibly hard to watch, right? A public figure that you believe had a key role in failing to protect, especially we all remember the protective ring he theoretically but evidently did not throw around care homes. Lots of people lost people as a result of that incompetence.
But what is so ridiculous? I mean, look, if he chose to give up public life, he could go and be in a circus or do whatever he wants.
Yes, exactly.
But what he can't, I think, being serious. Now, this is my serious face, okay? So don't you go jeering at me.
Sorry.
Because I am being serious, right? I just don't see how you could be a serious politician and take the money of being an MP and then go prancing around a supposed jungle, actually a pond at the bottom of the hotel garden where they stay in Australia. But we won't worry about little things like that.
But also having the whip withdrawn, he's now an independent. There's quite a lot of them sloshing about now, aren't there? How will his constituents feel about that? I mean, what's the mandate that he's been elected on?
I think it's difficult for him. He says it's to make, was it dyslexia or whatever it is he wants to. And that's a very good cause. But you feel it is the money.
Of course.
And it's also a certain sort of desire for notoriety that once you start, notoriety.
How can you say it's that desire for notoriety? He does have the Matt Hancock app. which I did download earlier. Have you downloaded
Of course about that.
Go on, let's read us some selected.
I've only just downloaded it, to be honest, out of curiosity. I have to find it, but
I think he is clearly desperate to be loved. I think he wants
Gina
to
Collar-Delangelo.
Yes,
you know, she's.
Yes, if anything, he was too loved.
And you remembered that it wasn't on your autocue.
Yes, I do have some thoughts in my head all by myself.
I'm in admiration. It was worth travelling halfway across London.
You are
freezing
so cheeky.
Cold, in the freezing cold.
It's very.
To hear you
the whole
say
thing
that
is...
from 3 feet away. Fantastic.
Moving on, David, you wanted to talk about criminals and sexual predators join the police. This is front page of this morning's Times.
I've got to say that, you know, there are moments, and I'm trying to be serious here, although...
That's the third time you've said that.
I know, but it's very difficult because...
Sorry.
I think it was Disraeli said of someone, it was when he was trying to be at his most serious, he was his most laughable. And this is my worry, that I can't be serious without people bursting into laughter. But, I mean, this is... Anybody who worries whether this country is going to the dogs will get an affirmative answer when they read this. I mean, forces have accepted... This is about an inspection of the police's recruitment policies, officially by Her Majesty's Inspectorate. And forces have accepted applicants with convictions for robbery, indecent exposure and domestic abuse. One recruit was a pimp, and others... I had to look at what that was. One recruit was a pimp, and others were caught lying about their family's involvement in serious crime, including drug dealing. And, of course, we need to remember Sarah Everard was murdered by an officer who should never have been in the police because of his previous convictions for indecent exposure. And also, you know, they had these WhatsApp groups where, I think the problem with WhatsApp groups is it brings out the worst in everybody, you know, and all the awful things that people think. They start sharing with colleagues, and that means that they think it's normal. And I really am, you know, quite appalled.
Yeah.
I mean, I already know what WhatsApp is, let alone belonging to a group, which is probably just as well, because I don't want to have the worst in me brought out. And the police shouldn't be doing this.
Just to explain, this is His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services. This is a report that there's going to be a lot more on this today, by the way, saying that hundreds, if not thousands, of corrupt officers were working in England and Wales. Yeah. Forces had a risk threshold that was too low in their drive for recruits, and in at least one case to improve diversity, Amy.
Yeah, this story is really troubling, and I think comes obviously on the back of we hear endless negative news about the police, the Met Police in particular. I live in London, so that's obviously particularly pertinent to me. And I think Sarah Everard, as you've already touched on, that story really shocked everyone. And I think what people were also shocked by was how the police responded in the wake of that event. Instead of acknowledging these evident endemic problems within the service, they kind of battened down the hatches. They went into full defence mode and actually sort of came out against the protesters who were trying to raise concerns about what have now proved to be very, very legitimate problems within the force. Some of the stats on this are really terrifying. So they reviewed 725 vetting processes, of which they said 131 were questionable and 68 should have been outright rejected from the force.
68 were so outrageous. They shouldn't have even got through the door.
This is why I think as women in the capital, as people of colour in the capital, it is becoming increasingly impossible for us to trust our police.
But as someone who knows, I know people that serve in the police, really good police officers, and they do feel like the morale is quite low at the moment, and they feel constantly under pressure, especially with the media spotlight.
But this does nothing to help them, right? Having a force that is riddled with these kind of characters does nothing to support people trying to do a good job.
Overnight, you can say, right, we're going to tighten up our vetting process. Surely, I mean, how many more reports does it take for them to say we need to sort this out?
Yeah, and they don't appear to be following their own processes. Yeah. So out of 348 alleged criminal offences by police officers, only 58% were properly investigated. So I totally agree with you. This doesn't seem like rocket science to me, and I presume the processes are in place, they are not being adhered to. There might be some legitimate questions about the drive for more police, possibly causing us to kind of rapidly move through these, but that just seems so wrong-headed.
I'm sure there'll be some reaction from Mark Rowley, the new head of...
Yes.
Yeah, and presumably Suella Braverman will have thoughts as well.
The people change, the senior officers change, they come up with the same old stuff, and this is dreadful, we're going to sort it out, and then they don't.
They don't, yeah.
Well, they don't.
Should we talk about Albanian migrants, talking about, rushing through issues? Quicker deportations are being suggested for this influx of Albanians. I believe it's 1 to 2% of all male
Between
Albanians
20 and 40,
now
yes.
here illegally through boats. So tell us, what is this suggestion, David? How are we going to deal with this more quickly in relation to Albanians?
Obviously, in order to deal with it more quickly, they've got to make the law effectively... Look, it seems to me, sorry to say, quite simple. It's always a dangerous thing to say things are quite simple. I did spend 5 years at the Home Office. You've got to get the law right. Now, what the law should say is that there is a basis for coming into this country, and that is applied, where people put on the record what they can bring to this country, and then some are let in. But if you just turn up on a beach somewhere, I don't think the law should allow you to then suddenly fall into the arms, of lots of ambitious lawyers who, for political and commercial reasons, immediately try to take up court time. And the worry is that once these people arrive, you don't get rid of them. First of all, because they haven't changed the law, but mainly because the Home Office, which used to be a prestige department, I hate to tell you this, when I was there, it was a prestige, not because I was there, but, it was regarded as a great department of state. I can think of people who I was at the Home Office with, like the first Home Secretary, Sir Willie Whitelaw, who was turning in his grave at all of this. And basically what they can't do... Look, how can it be that 96% of these cases have not been dealt with?
Yeah.
I mean, it is sheer incompetence. Let's say, if you really want to believe that Britain has gone totally to the dogs, and I generally avoid extreme statements like that, but I was profoundly depressed to read that story, because everything was wrong with it.
Well, 60% of the crossings over the summer were Albanians, clearly not asylum seekers. There have been 12,000 Albanians this year. What do you think about this suggestion to quickly turn them back to Albania?
I think what we have to be really cautious of is using what I don't deny is a current phenomenon, a current challenge that we're facing. Albanians have always featured in people coming to the UK to seek safety and refuge, and we do have to recognise that lots of people have been trafficked. I'm not saying that is everyone, but I think the danger of this rhetoric is that it is used to demonise the refugees crisis in general, and also migration in general, and it is used to prop up these really hate-filled systems that are being... The hate in our system is being kind of institutionalised in the way that we talk about it in the media. I find the tenor of the conversation right now, in the wake of what is now being investigated by the counter-terrorism police as at least the bombing at the one of the refugee centres, at least it may have been associated with hate-filled grievances. And yet, despite that happening, despite a recognition that the way we talk about the migration crisis is wrong.
You're talking about the use of the word
opinion.
invasion by Suella Braverman.
Yes.
Stephen's been in touch with us this morning. He says the attack on Braverman is out of order. She's saying words that the majority of the public are saying. It's only the political bubble that ignores the public.
Okay,
Are you in that bubble?
Yes, well, I think I am in that bubble, but I also think a huge number of the British population are also in that bubble, because in general we are a caring and compassionate nation. We know that from the way that we responded to Ukrainians and to the Afghanis.
Compassionate does not mean we let in people from a country where there's no evidence that Albania is a place where people are persecuted. But look, let's call a spade whatever, OK? Albanians have one great export: criminals.
Oof.
Oh, yes, Albanian gangsters are extremely celebrated and known. That is a fact. Albanians, drugs and all the rest of it. And these people are coming here not because they're refugees, but they want to set up it's a conspiracy to distribute drugs and so on.
It is a huge situation. As you say, 1 to 2% of the entire male population of Albania have arrived in small boats illegally in this country. We have to leave it there, but no doubt we will discuss it more in the next paper review and throughout the course of the morning. Eamonn, David, thank you very much for now.
It is 6:51. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this morning then. As we've just been mentioning in the papers, potentially thousands of corrupt officers may be serving in English and Welsh police forces. A police watchdog has warned the new report condemns poor police vetting standards and found a culture of misogyny, sexism and predatory behaviour towards female police officers, staff and members of the public. They say it's prevalent in many forces.
Basics such as tea bags and milk saw significant price rises in October as food inflation reached a record high of 11.6%. The British Retail Consortium says costs were pushed up due to rising commodity and energy prices and a tight labour market.
The King and the Queen Consort will host a Buckingham Palace reception to celebrate the achievements of over 200 Olympic and Paralympic medalists. This evening's event will see sporting stars who won gold, silver and bronze at Tokyo 2020 and the Beijing 2022 Winter Games.
Now, speaking at the Tusk Conservation Awards last night, the Prince of Wales warned that criminal gangs who facilitate wildlife trafficking will face serious consequences.
Each year the event celebrates the work of conservationists and yesterday marked its 10th anniversary at Hampton Court Palace.
Cameron Walker was there and sent this report, which does contain flashing images.
The criminal gangs facilitating wildlife trafficking. You will face serious consequences.
A cause championed for decades by the Prince of Wales. In a cost of living crisis, it's perhaps easy to forget the threats piling up for Africa's wildlife. But the annual awards last night, hosted by conservation charity Tusk, was a chance for star guests to highlight the work of conservationists across Africa. And the Decade of Awards was championed by both Prince William and his cousin Peter Phillips. Alumni have since gone on to bring poaching levels to near zero in an area of Kenya, and elephant death rates have been reduced by 66% in Zambia between 2018 and 2020. Tusk's boss, Charlie Mayhew, thinks protecting wildlife is very important to the Prince of Wales.
Right from day one in 2005, when he became our patron, he has always demonstrated a deep passion for the continent, its people and its wildlife. His determination to try and do what he can to elevate the debate on the illegal wildlife trade, and through his initiative United for Wildlife, he's been amazing.
Achilles Biaruhanga received the Prince William Award for a lifetime of conservation work. He's helped transform wetlands into a birdwatcher's paradise, engaging locals in the benefits of tourism. As a boy, he was arrested 5 times for causing a nuisance, but what was once considered a crime is now a conservation career.
One of the things that we had to do was to train young people as guides, those who would be guiding tourists. And now it is a movement. Other people have taken it over, and it is providing employment to many young men and women who are deriving benefit out of that.
Prince William also stressed the need to help locals during his speech. Today, His Royal Highness is bringing together conservationists from last night's awards for a special meeting at St James's Palace, all united in a common cause, helping locals improve their livelihoods so they in turn can protect the animals who live around them. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Absolutely fantastic, all the work that Tusk does. Really great to celebrate that, I think.
Definitely. Stay with us. More on Matt Hancock in the jungle after the weather.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. For many, it's a bright start, but don't get used to that. Wet and windy weather is on the way, and we have Met Office yellow warnings in place for this, an area of low pressure that's really been intensifying overnight out in the Atlantic, going to bring some pretty wild weather to parts of Ireland, but also as it spreads its way up to the northwest, wet and windy weather will hit parts of the UK too. Starting with Northern Ireland this morning, that rain really intense here, and after some recent heavy downpours, that rain could cause some problems. The wind's really whipping up around Irish sea coasts and then over parts of northern England, so we have warning in place for that, gusts of 55, 60, maybe 65 miles an hour. And then this band of heavy rain moving into parts of Scotland could also cause some disruption here. But Almost anywhere in the west, heavy rain making for a lot of spray and surface water on the roads this afternoon. Much of eastern England will stay dry and it'll still be quite mild, but it is going to turn windy everywhere and it's going to be another blustery evening with the rain working into the Midlands and then across eastern parts of England during this evening. Following on, there'll be plenty of heavy showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Overnight, that rain doesn't really clear from East Anglia and the southeast. It kind of sticks around. Elsewhere, we will see clearing skies and temperatures will again drop down to single figures. But with more cloud across the south, it won't be as chilly as the night just gone. That rain, as I said, never properly clears away and it's likely to come back tomorrow over the southeast of England and parts of East Anglia. So here, a very drab day. Today will be mostly dry until this evening, but tomorrow could be a pretty wet one across East Anglia and the southeast. Elsewhere, some brighter skies, a bit of sunshine, but then showers will develop too, particularly over western parts of England and Wales, where we could see some heavy, slow-moving showers during the afternoon. It will feel a little fresher on Thursday, but this ridge of high pressure promises a drier, brighter day for most on Friday before more rain arrives on Saturday.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Matt Hancock defends his decision to appear on I'm a Celebrity as Downing Street joins the chorus of criticism.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 2nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Paul.
Your top story this morning, then, Matt Hancock saying that his decision to join I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is part of an attempt to reach people outside of Westminster and show the human side of politics.
Downing Street last night hit out at the former Health Secretary with a spokesperson saying MPs should be working hard during this challenging time.
Elsewhere this morning, police have named the suspect in the Dover firebomb attack as Andrew Leake from High Wycombe. Although the incident has not been declared as terrorism, officers say it was likely driven by hate.
And Prince William attended the Tusk Awards last night for the first time as the Prince of Wales. The charity, which he supported since 2005, highlights the work of conservation leaders in Africa.
Lots of you getting in touch with us this morning. Sue says perhaps we could send an opposition MP to the jungle as well. Angela Rayner or Keir Starmer. That would be a show.
Keep your thoughts coming in. We'll have lots more of those for you throughout the programme. So our top story this morning, Matt Hancock has said that his appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here will be a way to reach out to the politically disengaged, adding that he hopes to show the human side of MPs.
Downing Street last night became the latest to criticise the former Health Secretary's decision, with a spokesperson saying that MPs should be working hard in Parliament or their constituencies at such a difficult time.
Well, the group representing COVID-bereaved families has also rebuked Hancock, saying on Twitter that his appearance is sickening and that ITV should do the decent thing and remove him from the programme.
It follows his suspension as a Conservative MP. This is what his constituents have been saying.
Is the country fantastic, going well, is it? No. So he's leaving his job to go to do this. And he's earning 80 grand, I think?
I think it's nearer 400.
Exactly. So what he's doing, he shouldn't be in this job.
I'm quite shocked that he's going. It could make him, or it could break him.
I'm not particularly impressed, no. When we vote for MPs, they should be here doing their work for us, and everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people have lost faith in that for quite a long time now, so...
I don't think he should be doing it. It's not good for the public's image, to be quite honest, so, yeah, I think it's time for him to call it a day and move on to some new pastures.
Well, joining us now are the former Liberal Democrat MP and I'm a Celebrity contestant, Lembit Opik, and the showbiz reporter, Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning to both of you. Lembit, let's go to you first of all, because I think there will be questions about, I suppose, the former Health Secretary's moral compass. I mean, he was having an affair on public property, breaking his own lockdown rules, questions about his judgment on PPE contracts. Of course, there was that awful furore around putting his arm around the most vulnerable, and then we know, of course, people were released into care homes with COVID, and now as a paid MP taking the cash to appear on reality TV. Does he have a moral compass?
Yes, he does. I know him well. I've known him for years, and you're mixing up two things here. The first one is, did he do a good or bad job as a cabinet minister and with health? Well, a lot of people think he did a terrible job. I don't think it was as bad as some people think, but there's no doubt he made tons of mistakes. That's the first thing. The second thing is, should he, on principle, go into a reality show? Now, in principle, lots of politicians have done reality shows, like Come Dine With Me and Strictly Come Dancing. Vince Cable did a cameo there. So it's not the principle of going into a reality show. It's whether he's away for too long. And here's the problem. And this has nothing to do about whether he was a good or a bad cabinet minister. He has chosen to spend up to 23 days out of communication with the rest of the world. That's if he wins. He's probably not going to win. It could be as little as 2 weeks. Well, politicians make those holidays quite often, certainly in the summer. Should they be banned? Should a politician not be allowed to spend 104 days a year, which are weekends, not working? And they actually do work at weekends. This is the problem. This is why it's righteous indignation. His moral compass point is completely different. He didn't do a bad job on purpose as a cabinet minister. He's a genuinely nice bloke if you met him in a pub and he didn't know who he was. So I think he's being pariahed. He's not here to defend himself, and that's why it's a field day for people. Incidentally, your great sample of 4 people from his constituency is not statistically significant. I'll go there and I'll find you 5 people who think he's doing a good job.
Just to be clear, you went into the jungle 2010, I think it was, but you actually had just lost your seat. You weren't an MP at the time. Would you have done it if you had been a paid Member of Parliament? Do you think that that is controversial?
Yes, I would. And I'll tell you why. Because I would have made the judgment that I'm doing 80, 100 hours a week, that I don't have my weekends, and it's a reasonable thing to do, part of life's journey. I think it's a privilege to be on, as I've mentioned before, the crown jewels of reality TV. So I would have made the same decision as him. I'd have taken the heat, I'd have given some of the money to charity, and I've kept some of it as well. You've got one go at life. No animals or people are being harmed by the decision that he has made. But we're making him sound like the worst person.
Is that strictly true, Stephanie?
Actually, good point. Well made. Yeah. I'd like to apologise for any witchetty grubs that are watching now.
And that's the point, I suppose. I mean, Paul, you want to tell Stephanie?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about I'm a Celebrity. It's for entertainment, but also it involves a lot of gruesome challenges, whether it's drinking deer blood, eating kangaroo testicles or being buried with snakes or worms. Like, Matt Hancock is really going to be down in the pit of it. And I think that's what's going to make it entertaining viewing for all of us when we watch it. But as well, it's going to be quite heated for Matt Hancock, because you've got quite extreme celebrities like Boy George going in. You've got journalist Charlene White going in, who actually lost a member to COVID, and she couldn't bury her auntie in a proper funeral, which was some of the rules that Matt Hancock was introducing during that time. So I think he's going to ruffle quite a few feathers in there. But, you know, what he's done is quite calculated. He does say that he turned down the offer to go on the show at least 2 times, and it wasn't until the government was stable that he agreed to go on the 3rd time. But recently this year, we've been seeing he's been, you know, doing podcasts. He has a book coming out. So it's really about his star power, but I think he's just going to have 15 minutes of fame, and that's it.
Yeah. And just very quickly, just talk about the money involved.
Yeah, there is a lot of money. We cannot deny the money here. So he's been, you know, estimated to be getting about £350,000 just to appear on the show. If he does well, you know, there's other things that come from being on the show. There's product endorsements, there's interviews, there's magazine deals, there's all that stuff, that machine of being a celebrity. That's what he can expect.
Yeah, Lembit, I know you wanted to separate the issues about his competency as a minister, but I just wanted to read to you that the full tweet from the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice is very strong. They say, Matt Hancock isn't a celebrity. He's the former health secretary who oversaw the UK having one of the highest death tolls in the world from COVID. The fact he's trying to cash in on his terrible legacy, rather than showing some humility or seeking to reflect on the appalling consequences of his time in government, says it all about the sort of person he is. They call it sickening. Their families were ripped apart by Matt Hancock's actions, and that they think that no TV station would touch him with a large barge pole, and that ITV should do the decent thing and remove him from the programme. Do you understand how they feel?
Yeah, well, of course I do. 2 things. Terry Mills, my agent, died from COVID during the pandemic. So I'm not going to take lectures from people who say that they've suffered more than me. I hate that contest. We've all had tragedy.
Yeah.
My mother died last year, not of COVID, but I didn't get to see her for most of the last 18 months because of the rules we're talking about. Despite that, I don't feel like personalising it towards Matt Hancock. He didn't deliberately make these poor decisions. And to say it's all sickening, OK, we can use those emotive words. Matt Hancock, let's be honest, has had a terrible life, maybe because of his own decisions. His kids have suffered. His family has suffered.
A terrible life?
In the last 18 months, you speak to him, you tell me that everything's dandy in his personal life. It's not. And so how much does he have to suffer? Has to sit at home reflecting on the mistakes he's made. There has to come a point when that's
In trying to understand why you feel differently to the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice, maybe it's because you personally know Matt Hancock.
Well, actually, even if I didn't like him, I'd still say this. I don't know Nadine Dorris that well, but I defended her as well. It's because we now ritually, in a woke way, run people down that we don't like. Now, on the first point, and I think, now, I respect this group, but I just don't agree with them on what they're saying. And most people wouldn't dare say this because then you get pariahed for it. But I've got to say it as I see it.
You can say it here.
Oh, well, and I'm going to. The first point is he's not a celebrity. He is now.
Yeah.
He's on every newspaper. You've just had the newspaper review with my friends there. And actually, ITV has played a blinder here because everyone who hates him is going to watch it, as well as everybody who likes him.
Lembit, did you feel like a celebrity when you came off the show? Because as we were talking backstage, there's all the good things, but then also there's the bad things when you come off the show as well.
I did feel like a celebrity when I came. I've never really planned to be well known. I was a bit naive in a way, a little bit, I think, like Matt Hancock. Perhaps that's one reason I relate to him. Because I was flattered by the fact people wanted me to be on the show and similar things. So you're right, Stephanie, I did feel like a celebrity, but I didn't have a plan. I think Matt's playing it more strategically. And I suspect that means, I don't know this, that he wants to have a career change. So you're right, Stephanie, if you play it well, you're made for at least a few years. Whether his effervescence is sufficient to do what I think he wants to do. Ed Balls has done it. I don't know yet. And I say that as a friend. But I do know that it can change your life. But back to the fundamental point, and I can summarise everything I've just said in this way. He's got the right to take this risk. And the risk is if he stands again and his constituents don't like it, then he's out. That's what happened to me.
Yeah. So maybe this is part of planning for after the next general election.
I think so.
And just lastly, very, very quickly, what will be the worst challenge and what would be your tip to him?
The worst challenge, if he doesn't like stinking eggs is the food. My tip to him is take it like Sean Ryder, who's a legend and a great friend now from the jungle. Just think of it as extra protein. And he got all the stars. When the proper food came in the evening, he lay in his bed and said, it's all right, I've already eaten.
Oh.
And that was cool. That is star quality. And don't get bitten by a snake. I was the first person ever. I'll show you the scar.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. OK, Lembit Opik, Stephanie Tetchy, thank you both very much.
Cheers. It is 11 minutes past 7. Rishi Sunak insisting yesterday that the UK will always be a compassionate, welcoming country, despite the word invasion used by his Home Secretary in the House of Commons.
Well, joining us now from Downing Street is our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Good morning to you, Darren. Look, lots of pressure then on trying to, I suppose, tone down some of the rhetoric, but also to critically deal with the situation that seems to be particularly bad at the moment.
Yeah, it does indeed. And even though many of those migrants now do seem to be leaving that Madston processing plant in North Kent, it is clear that there are still substantial problems there. We know that while hundreds have left to go on to more long-term, but ultimately in the end, temporary accommodation, that if there are more significant migrant arrivals, for example, today, that will add to the pressures at that camp. It is only meant to hold around 1,500 at most for no more than 24, 48 hours, and yet they're up to 4,000, or have been in recent days, some of whom have been there not just for days, but weeks. I think one Afghan family had been there for up to 5 weeks. Now, there are, again, reports this morning that 1,322 asylum-seeking children have been housed in hotels rather than in long-term homes, and that 222 children have gone missing in recent months. It's not a surprise then that local MP Roger Gales is saying that it is not sustainable and that something will have to change in order to get things back to normal pretty swiftly. Though the Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick last night said that good progress had been made and that the number of migrants in those processing plants in Dover was falling substantially. It is somewhat of a political headache for the government. It is a real sign, isn't it, of government failure that they simply cannot get a grip with this and they cannot process the number involved. It is worth noting, of course, that the UK actually takes substantially fewer, or has to process substantially fewer migration claims for asylum than other relatively big countries in Europe like France. So it is something the UK, in theory, should be able, as a country, to get on top on. And I would not be surprised, in fact, I'd be shocked if this wasn't one of the topics that Keir Starmer brings up at Prime Minister's Question Time a little later on today. It'll be the second clash between Keir Starmer and the new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, at midday.
OK, Darren, thank you very much indeed for that.
Also joining us in the studio is political editor of Tortoise Media, Kat Neelan. Kat, morning to you.
Morning.
How do you see PMQ's data today with Rishi Sunak?
Well, Keir Starmer's got quite a few different options to choose from, of course. Migration probably being the big topic, but we all know the economy is not looking good. News today about wargaming for blackouts. I mean, there's a lot of things going on that he can have quite good aim at Rishi Sunak on.
Shall we focus then, first of all, on what Darren was just discussing and the sort of crisis as it's, seems to be getting worse. We've obviously had this incident at Dover, but also some of the rhetoric from Suella Braverman. I mean, his appointment of her as Home Secretary was, I suppose, trying to show his cabinet as a unity cabinet. Do you think he might be regretting that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking to quite a few Conservative MPs over the last week, and the sense that I get is perhaps either Rishi Sunak or Suella Braverman or both have overestimated her value to him. The idea that she brings the right with her might be a bit overstated. People are sort of saying she's got a core group of between sort of 50 and 20 MPs who kind of support her, and we saw some of them come out when she was speaking in the Commons earlier this week.
Is that traditionally the ERG group, the European Research Group, or are they beginning to
that's definitely
themselves?
Splintered a bit. And we saw it over both leadership contests. Actually, they backed different horses. There are still the sort of core group that kind of sees Suella Braverman as a candidate for the future, and then the Common Sense group, which is the sort of anti-woke kind of more socially conservative kind of group. There are people who definitely think that she is speaking to them and to their constituents, but the problem that Rishi Sunak now faces is, firstly, this rhetoric stuff. Is that the kind of government that he wants to build? Because of course his his platform has been sort of on the more sort of sensible, sort of moderate, sort of.
Well, he came out yesterday saying we are still a compassionate country. Which...
Exactly. And how does that square with talk of an invasion? And ultimately, you know, kind of this coalition of the red wall and the blue wall feels like it's kind of constantly going to implode. He will alienate a lot of the sort of blue wall voters with this kind of rhetoric. Not saying that there isn't a problem there that needs to be solved. Very much there does. But the language is quite potentially
So for now, Suella Braverman, your sensing is safe?
Well, I think, you know, it's always what's around the corner. The moment of maximum danger seems to have been passed for now. Whether there are more leaks, and clearly there are people who are hostile to her, who are, you know, getting information out about her, you know, that could just be around the corner.
I mean, she says she's been a victim of a witch hunt, and lots of our viewers have got in touch. Stephen this morning, for example, saying the attack on Braverman's out of order. She's saying the words majority, in his view of the public, is saying it's only the political bubble that ignores the public. I mean, in many ways, she's saying, look, £600 a night hotels are not a good alternative to this migration facility that the problems have been at. You can't argue with that. If she's saying 7 million a day on hotels is too much, most people would say, sure, these illegal Albanian criminals coming in shouldn't be given £600 a night hotels.
Yeah, like I say, there is definitely a problem there, and it is costing the country a lot of money at a time when we don't have a lot of money to spend on these things. But they have been in government for 12 years and they have not got to grips with it. It's a very difficult issue. And obviously what needs to happen is some kind of, you know, cooperation with the French, with the Albanian government as well, perhaps, to sort of try and stop at the source of the problem rather than dealing with it when people kind of get to us.
Yeah. Lots of you getting in touch with us on this morning, by the way. Cheryl says, let's get real. These people are not asylum seekers. They are criminals who have paid thousands of pounds to be brought by other criminals into this country.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the counter-argument to that is a lot of people saying, well, it tars everybody with the same brush.
Exactly.
And, you know, 60% of the crossings over the summer were Albanians, largely facilitated by criminal gangs. But presumably then that 40% are people from Syria, from Afghanistan, who are fleeing terrible situation.
There are genuine asylum seekers, and that's the thing that we must not lose sight of. And particularly, I go back to the sort of use of this rhetoric around invasion and so on, coming just a day after there was a firebomb attack on a centre. You know, this is not a situation that should be manipulated for political gain. It is a serious situation that needs to be tackled. And a lot of Conservative and Labour MPs are concerned that it's just language being sort of played around with rather than serious work being done.
Well, yeah, Joyce shares that. She says, stop stressing about language, come into the real world, such as the red wall areas. Kat Nealon, as always, thank you. I know you're going to be back at 8 o'clock to talk about a sort of general overview of politics as well. Thank you very much indeed. gbviews@gbnews.uk if you want to get in touch with us about any conversation that you're hearing on the programme this morning, particularly migration and Matt Hancock. It is 7:19. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning. Potentially thousands of corrupt serving officers are in the police due to vetting failures. The police watchdog found a culture of misogyny, sexism and predatory behaviour towards female police officers, staff and members of the public is prevalent in many forces. Basics such as tea bags and milk saw significant price rises in October as food inflation reached a record high of 11.6%. The British Retail Consortium says costs were pushed up due to rising commodity and energy prices and a tight labour market. A new survey of over 3,000 motorists shows young drivers are delaying car repairs to save money. An RAC poll says 37% of those aged 17 to 24 are delaying fixing their vehicles amid the cost of living crisis. So if you were watching an hour ago, I was putting Paul on the spot with some UK citizenship questions because Meghan's been talking on one of her podcasts about how hard she found the quiz, and even Prince Harry, according to her, struggled with some of them. Paul, you got 50% right so far, not to put the pressure on.
I was only asked two questions.
I don't think I'd have got any of them right, so don't worry. So this one, what percentage, and at home you can also email in or tweet in with what you think the answer is, and I'll give the answer a little bit later on. What percentage of the UK population has a parent or grandparent born outside of the UK? Is it A, around 5%, B, around 10%, C, 15%, or D, 20%?
20%.
OK, that's what he's saying. Let me know at home what you think. I can tell you, give you a little hint. Paul is wrong. OK, it is not 20%. Do you want another one quickly?
Yeah.
OK, what is...
Yeah, the top tip is don't say what I say.
Yeah. When did the Emancipation Act abolish slavery throughout the British Empire? Was it 1835, 1823, 1807 or 1833?
Everyone knows it's 1807.
And Paul's wrong again. So let us know at home if you know the answers, and I'll give those to you a little bit later on. It's hard. Those are hard ones.
They are really hard. GBViews at gbnews.uk. If you do know the right answer, it's 7:21 after the break. Paul Coit will be here with all the big sports stories, including, he's very happy about this, understandably, Tottenham qualifying for the last 16 of the Champions League.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 7:25. Still to come on Wednesday's programme this morning at 8:10. We're going to be speaking to the former Chief Immigration Officer at the UK Border Force to see if there's any way to try and fix the UK's broken asylum system.
And at 8:30, it's what you've been waiting for, the World Cheese Awards. Taking place this morning in Newport. We'll speak to one of the judges and we'll be doing our own judging and tasting here in the studio.
Oh, I thought they'd host them in Cheddar.
Can we just stay on that?
In the Cheddar Gorge or something.
Let's just stay on that. Oh, it's there you go, it's frozen
there,
cheese.
Literally.
Frozen cheese. There you go. Looking forward to the cheese?
I absolutely love cheese, yeah. But yeah. Let us know your views this morning. Get in touch, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. Paul Coyte's in the studio with all the big stories, but the big one, the big headline.
Yes.
You don't like cheese.
Oh, is this going to come between us?
It really is.
I hate cheese. I hate. I've got a cheese.
Cheese. Even
cheesecake, cheesecloth, anything in cheese in the title. And you're talking about I'm a celebrity. I would rather eat a bug. I swear.
Did something traumatic happen to you in childhood related to cheese?
You know what I think it was? I remember going around the supermarket. You know, remember those little seats you used to have? I remember sitting in there, and I think going past the cheese counter and the smell of the cheese.
Sweaty socks.
Has affected me for all these years.
The sweatier sock, the smell, the better.
Oh,
of a cheese.
Have you noticed? I don't know whether this is like slightly in here, but there's a smell from the kitchen here that someone has left an old cheese.
Oh no, I don't like that smell.
And everybody's complaining about it, and nobody actually wants to dare go in there and move the cheese.
Oh.
Whereas I'm saying, well, I'm the last person because just the
what
just
else am I going to have?
cheese.
What else am I going to have for lunch later?
Just have a cracker without the cheese. have the cracker and the grapes, but when the cheese board comes round. Honestly, I'm serious. I think there's not many of us around, but we almost have a little group of people that hate cheese. Now, you look. I can see the way you're looking at me now.
Even a Baby Bell.
A fondue, a raclette.
Cheese is
Stilton.
a fondue. I mean, I went to Switzerland. I'd never go back there because the smell was sort of the fondue. Oh, honestly, cheese. I don't understand.
And
You're
that's
all
your sports
everybody
news
is
this
strange.
morning.
That's what happens when you invite me. That's what happens when you invite me into the sports chat. We talk about cheese.
Sorry. Talk about cheese.
Absolutely fine.
You're showing the cheese. Oh, you were looking at the cheese. I'm just thinking, it's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, let's cheer you up then.
OK.
Let's talk about Tottenham.
OK,
They've got some good news.
It was very good, but it was probably the equivalent of me eating cheese the first half that Spurs played against Marseille. Huge game. We talked about it yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
About how important Spurs had to win or at least get a draw to go through to the knockout stage of the Champions League. So it started out pretty badly. And I'll be honest with you, as someone with a very close affiliation to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, I'm watching this and thinking, what is going on?
This isn't going to end well.
It didn't look like it was going to end well. It was just going so bad.
Yeah.
And then Marseille score, and I'm thinking, this is over. And as Spurs have done so many times this season, and I tell you, I've looked into it, I'm trying to understand it, I can't put my finger on it, is that they then come out in the second half and play really well. And then scored a goal, and then right at the end,
Literally the end of the end.
right at the very last kick, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg scores an amazing goal, and we go through, or Spurs go through. Of course, I can't say we because obviously I'm completely neutral. And Spurs won 2-1, and then qualify for the knockout round.
There's a well-known definition of Spurs called being Spursy, which means to screw it up at the end.
Oh, OK. They're doing the opposite. They're doing what cheese does, and they are maturing and reaching room temperature.
Yes.
To become, you know,
I
delicious.
love the way that, honestly, I love that. But it was incredible. So they managed to do it. How? I don't know. Antonio Conte was sitting from the stands because he was banned from getting a red card in the last game. But somehow Spurs managed to do it. So someone actually tweeted something that made me laugh because Spurs play Liverpool on Sunday and said that the game kicks off at 4:30 for Liverpool, whereas Spurs it will be at 5:32 because this is the way that we'd expect it to do. It just takes a while to get going. But anyway, they're through, so I'm not going to complain. Everything's good. And the actual group, though, the positions changed 6 times during the game because there was the other game, which was Sporting Lisbon and Frankfurt were playing at the same time. So that was moving around. So it was really edge of the seat stuff.
Squeaky bum stuff.
It really
just very
was.
Quickly, Liverpool and Rangers.
Liverpool good. They're through 2-0. They beat Napoli. Napoli beat them at the start of the group stage. And Liverpool looking OK. Again, Liverpool just don't know with them at the moment. But they won 2-0. Very good. Rangers, unfortunately, 12 years. First time in the Champions League for 12 years. Won the Europa League. But they have ended up with the worst performance in the group stages of a Champions League there's ever been. They lost 3-1 at home to Ajax, so they don't even go through to the Europa League, so not good for them.
Just two,
we
finally,
have to.
Very
Yes.
quickly, fans to hear VAR decisions. Before they couldn't, they just sit there in silence and wait for it to come up on the screen.
Yeah, this is IFAB. This is the International Football Association group, and basically they're having meetings about referees and what we do with VAR. Of course, a lot of controversy. When you're in a stadium, if there's a VAR decision, everything stops. You just look at a blank screen, it says pending VAR decision. So it's whether we hear from referees, whether we hear what they're saying to each other with the VAR, whether they actually will do interviews afterwards, because let's face it, you only want to speak to a referee about a bad decision. So they're on a hiding to nothing. So it's how things are going to go with referees and make it just a little bit more transparent for everybody.
A bit like DRS in cricket, yeah.
You know what? There are ways.
Well,
Whereas
our
cricket,
VAR,
of course, we're through as well.
Yes, that was good news. Good
very
news
good
for England yesterday. Our VAR result is we have to move on now.
OK, please.
So thank you, Paul.
Can you bring the cheese in once I've gone? Is that all right?
Okay,
It's all I
sorry.
ask.
Yeah, OK.
If that's-
Yeah,
thank
we've actually got it out there, so you might want to put a peg on your nose as you go out, because I get the sense
OK.
you've got a very sensitive nose.
I am very sensitive.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Paul.
It is 7:32 after the break. We're going through the papers with David Mellor and Amy Cameron. Stand by.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
It's 7:36. It's that time in the programme where we review the newspapers so you don't have to. Joining us this morning, the former Chief Secretary of the Treasury, David Mellor, and environmental campaigner Amy Cameron. Welcome back to both of you. David, let's start with you. You've chosen The Crown. I was going to go to that a little bit later on, but why not? We've gone there now. The Mail front page, no less. Now The Crown really has slipped. What are they saying?
Well, what they're doing is focusing in ghastly detail on some of the things that probably a lot of people, including not just members of the royal family, would prefer to forget. So the Martin Bashir interview, now we know that was entirely set up. Why does that have to be gone over in luxuriant detail? And there's a lot of conversations with the Prince of Wales that he will not want to see again. But I think, what's really bad about this is it seems to be invented, a lot of this stuff. I mean, a lot of it is conversations that they would have no way of knowing whether it happened or whether it didn't. And Peter Morgan, who's hugely talented, but you feel The Crown started off as really pretty accurate. But now, and maybe it's because Netflix are under such pressure. Yeah, but I mean, now it seems to be mainly embellished, and a lot of it is about things that, look, I see it as an attack on the royal family. Do I have any mandate to protect the royal family? Of course not. But I do feel that it's not just an attack on the royal family, it's an attack on Britain. And the fact that the royal family is seen by many people abroad as a key element in why Britain is a stable country and an attractive place to live, that's all being undermined by this, because we have to accept there are a lot of people who, if they see it on the telly, they will think it's true.
But there is a disclaimer. There will be a disclaimer before this series saying, some of this might not be true. And at the end of every just like at the end of every film,
I think that to correct you, I think there's been an argument that they won't put that disclaimer on there. They're refusing to put that disclaimer on there. It's just unless that's changed whilst I've been off in the last week.
Anyway, we'll see.
They've been pressured to try and do that, and they're just allowing people to make that own conclusion. My question to Mystic Mellor is this. You've got Christopher...
His mysticity is here.
Yes.
We do charge for this.
OK, well, I think we're paying you for this session anyway, so it'll have to be included in all of that.
Quick.
Christopher Stevens has said on the front of the Mail, the Crown is now a monstrous perversion of itself. My prediction is that, although it might be described as a monstrous perversion, this will be the highest viewed.
Oh, yes. No, Mr. Mellor agrees with you.
Good.
Yes, we can join in a mysticity competition there. But I think, you're right. And that is the problem. And indeed, I will watch it. I've watched every episode so far. But I just feel that I like to think I am capable still, at my advanced age, of telling what's true and what isn't. But, I mean, if you're, somewhere in the middle of the United States, what chance have you got?
Well, the Duchess of Sussex, who knows?
Well, she's not going to appear there, bless her heart.
Not yet.
Because I think they're going to stop 20 years ago. But... I mean, it just shows the importance of television. But the only thing I would add about The Crown, because the production values are so high, it makes it almost impossible for people to know that it is fiction, and they will not say categorically what is fiction and what isn't, though an increasing amount is fiction, which may have to do with Netflix's own financial problems,
I feel like this is a problem we could have foreseen coming, right? Because what's happening is we're moving from the historic to recent history. I mean, we're now talking about events that have taken place in the vast majority of the population's lived memory. And also, so I think there's a kind of conflating of what has previously been to be honest, I think very good for the royal family. You know, I speak as someone who's not a royalist, and I found the first season kind of built my sympathy and empathy with the Queen. So I think there's two things happening. One is that we're moving ever closer to modern day, and two is that we are dealing with a monarch now in King Charles who lived for a very long period of time before becoming king, which means that he was both kind of allowed and exposed, allowed to kind of behave in ways and exposed around that in a way that the Queen just never was. So there is this whole wealth of relatively like torrid detail about his life, which is a life he would never have been allowed to live had he been made king earlier. So I think there's a couple of things happening, and I agree with you that I'm not a royalist by any stretch. I agree that I don't think this is necessarily great for the UK on the global stage at a time when we are already becoming something.
But you're
of a
an
laughingstock.
environmental campaigner, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. But so is Prince
Thank
Charles.
you.
No, but I'm
King Charles.
King Charles,
Yeah.
you know. Sorry, yes. Mystic Miller got that one wrong. But King Charles is an environmental campaigner of some distinction who was well ahead of the game on factory farming and all that stuff. Doesn't that make you feel a bit sorry for him? Because he could have just sat back and, you know, just enjoyed private parties with his mates.
I mean, I sort of feel sorry for all of the royal family in a weird way. I recognise on the one hand they are extremely privileged. On the other hand, I wouldn't wish their role on my worst enemy. I'm not going to get into the conversation about whether the royal family should exist because it's all...
No, but can we just, whilst we've got you, and we're on the subject,
yeah.
COP27 coming up in Sharm el-Sheikh this weekend. Rishi Sunak famously saying he wasn't going to go. We've had Boris Johnson come out and confirm he is going this weekend. And we've subsequently heard that because of Rishi not going, the King wasn't going to go. But he's now hosting this reception at Buckingham Palace for, I think, can anyone remember the guest list? The American environmental campaigner... Oh, it's on top of my tongue. Anyway, he ran for president and failed.
Al Gore.
Yes, presumably. Might not be. Anyway, he's got a reception on Friday. Do you think that's controversial, good, welcome it? What's your views on that?
So I think that the King should have been allowed to go to COP. As David has touched on, he's got a long history of speaking out on environmental issues. And I think we need to stop treating the climate crisis as a political football. There is overwhelming and cross-party support for climate action in the UK. And actually, I think it's one of the very, very few things that I would say Boris Johnson was at least strong rhetorically on, if not actually in any policy delivery, but was demonstrating it was possible to have a right-wing government who still believed in the net zero transition. I think this framing of climate and any conversation around how we go about tackling what is just factually one of the biggest crises that the world faces, to paint that as a political issue that a monarch should not engage in, I think is deeply misguided. And I think Sunak is feeling the heat on that, actually, in a way that they possibly weren't expecting, in that it's been pretty badly received. Whatever you think of how we go about tackling the climate crisis, we need to tackle the climate crisis. That is fairly broadly accepted at this point, very broadly accepted. And if we're talking about, you know, Britain regaining its position as a global leader, then surely this is an issue where we have a huge opportunity to sort of mark ourselves out in that way. And economically, it makes sense to put us on the front foot of a transition which is going to result in jobs.
David, by next Tuesday, Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary, has to rule on whether Britain will open its first deep coal mine in Cumbria for 30 years. What do you think?
Well, I think coal is gone.
This is coking coal.
Yeah,
for the steel industry.
But, you know, my first job in government was Under-Secretary for the Department of Energy, and I used to go around all these big coal stations, and it was extraordinary to see them. Vast amounts of coal. You almost couldn't see a huge... the huge buildings generating electricity behind. But that's gone. So what's the point of coming back to it? Coal is gone.
Yeah. Well, if that's...
I know what you're saying about coking coal, but... I just don't.
The argument is to move away from a reliance on Russian coal and to have more energy security.
That would be a good idea.
Create jobs as well.
But I just don't feel coal is today.
OK. Well, look, let's stay with the energy theme, Amy. The Guardian front page talking about the secret war game plans to cope with what could be 7-day blackouts. I mean, presumably this is worst-case scenario planning, which you want any government to do, especially, I suppose, lessons learned from the pandemic. But
Absolutely.
Still a bit alarming.
And this is worst-case scenario planning, and I think it's important to kind of couch this conversation in that. And I totally agree with you. I think all governments should be prepared for all eventualities, particularly in the world that we are unfortunately currently living in with hostile actors such as Russia. So we know there have been attacks on key pieces of energy infrastructure in Ukraine, but also beyond Ukraine's borders by the Russians. So I absolutely think that we need to be planning around this. I think the reality, though, is that we in the UK are uniquely vulnerable to energy shortages because of policy decisions that have been taken by this government and the government prior. And within those, I would refer to shutting down of onshore wind. It is our cheapest energy source, not just cheapest renewable, it is our cheapest energy source. And yet under this Conservative government and previous Conservative governments, we have not been allowed to build any onshore wind. Our homes are some of the leakiest.
But you're not saying that Labour was
hang on.
really good at all of this stuff, are you?
Labour have not been in power
I think
for 12
your credibility
years.
as an environment campaigner is enhanced if you don't appear to be too partisan about it.
I agree, but Labour haven't been in power for 12 years. So I think energy policy decisions have been taken in the last 12 years have been of huge importance to the situation we currently find ourselves in. And I would argue that public support around the need for climate action has also ramped up to the likes of which we've never seen. Do I think that Labour are doing all that they can or should be doing on the environment? Absolutely not.
And
I definitely
in your
want to see more from
non-royalist
them.
role, you think President Corbyn would have done better? Do you?
I think President Corbyn...
At least you have the grace to laugh. That's good.
I do think he set out an ambitious plan on climate action, which I think we are now starting to see some elements of in the current Labour leadership. They're stepping up a little, but I think the Tory government are wildly lacking. I also just do want to touch on energy efficiency, because one of the things that is scariest for people in the context of an energy blackout is that they will freeze in their homes. We already see people facing that fear this winter, purely driven by cost, never mind supply. And partly that is because we have completely failed to make our homes warm.
But we have individual responsibility for that.
But so many people in this country do not have access to the cash that is required for the upfront changes to their home. Will those changes result in savings over the long term? Absolutely. So there should be a government mechanism to support people in making the right choices. Also, so many people live in the rented sector where they have zero agency over the warmth of their homes.
Just very quickly on your point about wind power, it's not always blowing.
It's not always blowing, but that's why it's part of a crucial mix of energy supply, right? Also, the UK is a very windy country, and we know that at points regularly now in Scotland, when onshore and offshore wind provides 100% of the electricity needs. So we know it works.
Yeah, the wind, though, David, is blowing Netanyahu's way in Israel.
Lovely segue.
I just thought I should mention this because, I mean, it's sometimes annoying in this country that people come out of nowhere and then become Prime Minister and make a total mess of it. My first witness, my lord, is Truss. But you know what I mean? You can begin in politics in the morning, you can become a senior minister in the afternoon and be dismissed in the evening for some mess that you've made. But, all the while that I've been interested in politics and involved in politics, Netanyahu has been there. And you keep thinking, at what point does he go away? But no, he's back. And the chances are he'll be the next Prime Minister of Israel. And you think, as an important country, they've got to be able to do better than that.
Well, Netanyahu coming back, talk of Donald Trump running again in a couple of years' time in the States. Is that good for democracy when you get the same people coming back again and again?
It absolutely isn't. But you see, you and I, we must have a public bet on this, you see. I say that Trump will not get anywhere.
He will get the nomination from
No, he won't get
the
the
Republicans.
nomination, he won't win.
Right, OK. And you're saying...
Even if he got
so you're saying he won't get nominated. I think he will. How much do you want to put on it?
What worthy cause can we give it to? And what would you say, 50 quid?
50 quid?
Right, come on, yes.
I don't...
Come on, put your money where your mouth is.
There you go.
This is not making a nomination.
A fiver. There's a cost of living crisis, man.
The Matt Hancock of GB News.
I've just forfeited my Christmas bonus. Anyway...
Should we do...
I didn't realise I was going to lose a fiver today.
Have we got time to talk about the NHS? Oh, OK, this is a time and a funding black hole. Amy, Telegraph front page, NHS seeking £7 billion extra to tackle backlogs.
Yeah.
They're unlikely to get that.
Well, I actually think that what's interesting about this story, one, I think, is that we absolutely need to be investing more in our NHS. Anyone who's tried to see a doctor or have follow-up treatments will recognise that this system is absolutely creaking because of years of underfunding and then obviously exacerbated by the recent COVID crisis. So we've got 1 in 8 people in the UK on a waiting list to either be seen or to be treated within the NHS. That's simply not good enough.
But do you think more money will sort that out? Or do you think we're just incapable of spending money effectively in the NHS?
I think more money absolutely has to be
But do you think that comes ahead, more money comes ahead of looking at a root and branch, entire relook at the NHS and the way it works?
I think that part of the problem in the NHS is that it's been put through the ringer through a series of health secretaries who've come in with big ideas of reform, right? And we've had no consistent long-term planning. I mean, this is a problem across lots of government departments. The churn that we see in our government with regular new faces coming in with new ideas means that these crucial institutions are tossed to the wind constantly. But money has to be part of it. If you look at the situation with NHS nurses, on average, their wages are 6% lower than they were in 2010. But for senior nurses, they are 20% lower.
Yeah, but how much you pay them is separate from how much funding you put into the NHS. That's a separate decision. 20 billion increase over 5 years announced by Theresa May in 2018. 81 billion allocated for NHS COVID costs in the period 2020 to 22, and 36 billion increase over 3 years announced by Boris Johnson in September last year.
But we have an ageing...
have ploughed money into the NHS.
We have an ageing population, right? And with that comes an increasing challenge for the NHS. Obviously, we are coming off the back of COVID, so it's a system that is on its knees after decades of underfunding.
Oh.
So yes, at the moment there is...
Come on, David.
If only it was decades of underfunding, it'd be easy to sort out. I should have these things readily to hand, but his mysticity didn't anticipate this, so I can't pull out of my pocket all that stuff. Well, naughty mysticity. Get a grip. So basically...
You're all right.
No, I
Too many coffees.
I think I am suffering from old age. But
I'm enjoying it.
But genuinely, the problem is, if only the problem was just shortage of money, but it isn't. It's about trying to run this vast bureaucracy and to do it at a cost that is affordable. And I think the danger for all of us is that there's lots of other things that are worth spending money on that isn't the NHS.
No.
But it's consuming so much of the national wealth. And of course, this is where what's happening with inflation makes it all the more difficult.
Yeah.
I agree that I think we shouldn't necessarily be... Sorry. I agree, but we can talk about it later.
Oh, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to say, Amy.
Hopefully when the cameras have moved away.
Carry that on in the green room.
We want to keep a few viewers, don't we?
But I do love the passionate debate. It's great. We will have more from his mysticity and Amy Cameron a little bit later on in the programme. But for now, we're going to talk about farming and piggies.
Yeah, a National Farmers Union campaign to build support for the agriculture sector and encourage people to buy British products is underway.
Yes, it comes as food inflation, as we've been discussing, rises to a record 11.6%, with the cost of basic goods soaring.
Doogie Beattie has been out on a farm taking a look at the challenges British farmers face.
Farming throughout the UK is holding a steady course in politically challenging times. Its ability to keep a nation fed isn't getting any easier. John McClenaghan, Deputy President of the Ulster Farmers Union, explains what today is all about and what concerns farming has in the future.
We're very happy to be involved with Back British Farming Day. The Ulster Farmers Union, and along with the NFU, NFU Scotland and NFU Cymru, are using this day to highlight the value of British farming to the British economy and to the British public. This is not about Little Britain. This is not about Britain only eating British. We recognise that there is a need to import some food into the British Isles. There's some food we just can't produce, but it does concern us whenever we see government looking at doing trade deals to import food which we can produce here, which we can produce better here, we can produce to a higher welfare standard, to a higher sustainability standard, to a higher environmental standard with a lower carbon footprint, and ultimately when the playing field is levelled out to a much better value as well.
The emphasis here is not just on farms, but many more businesses in the food chain.
back British Farming Day, it's not just about the farmers, it's also about, we have some of the, we have world-leading processors, food processors across these islands, and we also have world-leading retailers, and we see those from at every level, from the corner shop, the farm shop, right up to the major multiples, and the world-leading in what they do. And they recognise and they also value the importance of buying British food, putting that on the shelves for their consumers.
Food inflation is high on the cost of living crisis, and the need for food security is now greater than ever.
Yeah, well, we have seen cost-push inflation on food prices over the course of this year, and we don't see very much in the future that's going to change that. It's interesting if you divide that inflationary food price up and look at domestic food inflation versus imported food inflation, we see that imported food inflation is rising at a far higher rate than domestic food inflation, once again highlighting the fact of the need for us to be as self-sufficient as possible in food production. If we go back as far into 1984, we were about 78% self-sufficient in food. Today, that figure is under 60%, and that's concerning for us as an industry and should be concerning for us as a nation.
As contracts on global input costs are renegotiated, the need to be persuaded to buy local may become less of a choice. Dougie Beattie, GB News.
Potatoes.
Yeah, need to buy British. And speaking of British food, we are going to be talking about cheese. But before I tell you why, some people begin to ask about
Graham says people would buy British if the supermarket stocked British food. Neil says, I totally support the initiative by the NFU. Unless we back and support our own homegrown produce, Brexit was a fruitless exercise, surely.
Yeah, it is the World Cheese Awards. I know you've been thinking about it all morning while you're eating your cornflakes. So we're going to be talking about cheese in just a moment. Thank you to Andrew, who's been in touch with us this morning. That says, looking forward to your cheese tasting. Live cheese tasting coming up on GB News. And speaking of cheese, we're also talking about Matt Hancock this morning. Stuart says, don't agree with MPs taking time off while Parliament is in session. But if he is looking to give himself some financial security for the future, then good luck to him.
You were saying almost as important as the cheese is what you have it with, whether it's the cracker or the relish. Let us know your favourite combo, your favourite cheese. All of that to come after the break. What were they saying?
They were saying quince jelly.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank and, of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
the People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Matt Hancock defends his decision to appear on I'm a Celebrity as Downing Street joins the chorus of criticism.
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 2nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Paul Hawkins. Your top stories this morning. Matt Hancock has said that his decision to join I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is part of an attempt to reach people outside of Westminster and show the human side of politics. Downing Street last night hit out at the former Health Secretary with a spokesperson saying MPs should be working hard during this challenging time. In other news, police have named the suspect in the Dover firebomb attack as Andrew Leake from High Wycombe. Although the incident's not been declared as terrorism, officers say it was likely to be driven by hate. And Prince William attended the Tusk Awards last night for the first time as the Prince of Wales. The charity, which he has supported since 2005, highlights the work of conservation leaders in Africa. And as always, we love to hear from you. Be part of the conversation. We are the People's Channel. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at gbnews. We're talking about migration and Matt Hancock this morning. Martin in Worksop, morning to you, Martin, says, can we please swap Hancock for a few dozen migrants? Keith in Crete says, why wasn't Boris suspended for being on holiday when Parliament was sitting? I agree on Hancock being suspended, but why not Boris as well? That's true. He was in the Dominican Republic, wasn't he, when he whizzed back to try and run or consider running for PM. Julian in Coventry, however, says, why is he allowed to? In the real world, you'd be sacked or have to take unpaid leave. He's just had 6 weeks off during the summit. The rules need tightening. gbviews@gbnews.uk. So Matt Hancock has said that his appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here will be a way to reach out to the politically disengaged, adding that he hopes to show the human side of MPs. Well, Downing Street last night became the latest to criticise the former Health Secretary's decision, with a spokesperson saying that MPs should be working hard in Parliament or their constituencies at such a difficult time. The group representing COVID-bereaved families also rebuked Hancock, saying on Twitter that his appearance is sickening and that ITV should do the decent thing and remove him from the programme. Well, it follows his suspension as a Conservative MP. We've been to his constituency and speaking to people there about what they think.
Is the country fantastic, going well, is it? No. So he's leaving his job to go to do this. And he's earning 80 grand, I think?
I think it's nearer 400.
Exactly. So what he's doing, he shouldn't be in this job.
I'm quite shocked that he's going. It could make him, or it could break him.
I'm not particularly impressed, no. When we vote for MPs, they should be here doing their work for us. And everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people have lost faith in that for quite a long time now, so...
I don't think he should be doing it. It's not good for the public's image, to be quite honest. So, yeah, I think it's time for him to call it a day and move on to some new pastures.
So that's what his constituents think. Earlier this morning, former Liberal Democrat MP and I'm a Celebrity contestant Lembik Obik shared his thoughts on the decision.
I think Matt's playing it more strategically. And I suspect that means, I don't know this, that he wants to have a career change. So you're right, Stephen, if you play it well, you're made for at least a few years. Whether his effervescence is sufficient to do what I think he wants to do, Ed Balls has done it. I don't know yet. And I'm saying that as a friend. But I do know that it can change your life. But back to the fundamental point, and I can summarise everything I've just said in this way. He's got the right to take this risk. And the risk is if he stands again and his constituents don't like it, then he's out. That's what happened to me.
Yeah. So maybe this is part of planning for after the next general election.
I think so.
Well, joining us in the studio is political editor of Tortoise, Kat Neelan. Good morning to you again, Kat. Look, do you think he's doing the wrong thing here, the fact that he's still a sitting MP, or do you think there is a moral question about his failures during COVID that is insulting to bereaved families?
Well, there's a couple of points there. I mean, one of your viewers made the point about Boris Johnson, and we know that MPs frequently, they have second jobs, they spend a lot of time, parliamentary time, away from both Westminster and their constituencies. So is there a bit of sort of, he's being treated slightly differently to some of his colleagues, for example. I mean, last year there was a big sort of hoo-ha about Geoffrey Cox's outside earnings representing the British Virgin Islands. You could argue that he's not representing his constituents there. Matt Hancock's only away for 2 or 3 weeks. So, in the wider scheme of things, are they being represented less than Geoffrey Cox's constituents? That's a question that has kind of got a, kind of wider debate around it. And obviously second jobs has been discussed quite a lot, and the decision has been taken to allow MPs to continue to do that.
But I suppose Geoffrey Cox, who's the former Attorney General, a lot of people would say he could do that work concurrently, couldn't he, whilst doing his constituency work? A lot of MPs are GPs, whatever else it might be. But to be on the other side of the world, in the jungle, uncontactable, with the rest of the world, I mean, should he at least perhaps return his salary for the time that he's in there or donate it to charity? Or do you think really this is just people...
I think it's an optics thing. I think it's an optics thing. If he was doing something that was quote-unquote serious, there wouldn't have been quite such the sort of outrage. Because it's a sort of TV entertainment show, particularly at a time when people are struggling, it doesn't feel quite right. Now, optics are important in politics, of course, but they are not the only thing. And to sort of have, like, as we were saying, Boris Johnson on a sun lounger a couple of weeks ago, there was no discussion of him losing the whip over that.
Yeah. What about his point that this helps him to reach out beyond the Westminster bubble to people who are politically disengaged? Is he right?
Possibly. I mean, I think probably a lot of the Westminster bubble will now be watching I'm a Celebrity, who weren't planning to beforehand. Whether he's able to make serious political points in the middle of a jungle whilst eating all sorts of horrible things, I don't know. But certainly that is one argument.
What about those people who say, you know what, he's just been snubbed. He knows he's not going to get into Cabinet again. It was quite obvious, wasn't it? There was that footage of Rishi Sunak doing the handshakes down the line when he got announced as PM and seeing Matt Hancock and turning to Jake Berry instead. He's not very popular at the moment, is he, within the senior Conservative Party?
No,
he can't get a job on a select committee, so he's thinking, you know what, I'm going to follow the money.
Yes, I think one of his colleagues described him as a prat yesterday, which I think is kind of telling of the sort of wider view of him at the minute. Rishi Sunak's obviously not picked him for a cabinet role this time round, and there probably will be a reshuffle between now and the general election. But, if you've not been picked for this round, you may, think that that's probably it in terms of your frontline politics. So I think what Lembik Obik was saying earlier about him sort of looking ahead to his future career is probably right. But there is a wider question here about why politicians go into that job in the first place.
Well, is that the best a former minister can aspire to, is reality TV?
Exactly. And is it just a kind of feeder into a future of sort of being on TV and radio shows, writing books and so on and so forth? Don't we want the slightly sort of boring but civic-minded people there who are actually dealing with the difficult decisions?
Yeah, and speaking of difficult decisions and cabinet appointments, Rishi Sunak, let's move on to Suella Braverman. She is safe within cabinet at the moment, but the migration crisis, hasn't gone away, certainly in terms of the numbers of people crossing the channel and also the amount of time it takes to process an asylum application.
Yeah, so I mean, she was one of the key appointments that Rishi Sunak made for his brand new cabinet. Obviously, she sort of wrote an opinion piece explaining why she was going to back him for leader, and that really changed the dynamics of the contest. And it was very clear within the sort of framing of that article what she wanted was Home Secretary. So duly, that's what she got. Now, there are questions about her suitability of the role and in terms of this kind of ongoing leak issue, as well as the actual challenges of the job itself. So there are pressures on all sides. There are some suggestions that she could go as early as Christmas. But equally, you know, she can survive if she manages to get a grip of things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our viewers will see her as a heroine, as somebody who is preventing illegal criminals coming in, Albanians, many of them we know to be criminals, coming in and getting £600 a night hotel rooms. And she said, hasn't she, at the dispatch box, she's a victim of a witch hunt. I mean, is there some fairness in that?
I think, you know, don't shoot the messenger is what I would say. If you don't want to sort of, you know, do the time, then don't do the crime. But, you know, look, it is an issue that needs to be solved. It is not simply enough to stand at the dispatch box and kind of, you know, talk all this big talk. It actually, if anything, draws attention to the problem that hasn't been solved after 12 years of Tory government, hasn't been solved 6 years after the Brexit vote, when people were voting to get better control of the borders. And, you know, yes, there have been sort of many changes in government since that time, but it has been a Conservative government over that period, and people will rightly want to see some improvements before the next election.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kat, thank you. Lots of you getting in touch with us on this morning, by the way. Paul says, why doesn't Rishi Sunak listen to what the people of the UK want? We can't take any more illegal immigrants. We're full. Tom says, when a large army of invaders of 1,000 or more enter your country every day without entry by the correct routes of access, it is an invasion.
There is no legal route of asylum, is there, into the country? Margaret says, whilst I believe the immigration centre in Kent is definitely overcrowded, which isn't safe or healthy, I do wonder where they've been moved to, especially given our own struggles to eat and keep warm. Our cost of living is still rising every day, and that follows that suggestion that a lot of people have been moved off yesterday, but it wasn't specified exactly where to.
Yeah,
we're avoiding saying one of these expensive, costly hotels.
Yeah, look, let's get some more on this and go live to number 10 Downing Street, speak to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who can join us now. Darren, are there any signs from number 10 about actual policy, about the way they're going to tackle this problem, as opposed to rhetoric?
Well, I think there are, and we saw that, didn't we, on Monday, I should say, in Parliament, when Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, was highly praised France quite a lot. Now, why did she do that? Well, because I think the government has realised that France does have to be part of the solution to all of this. They talk about the fact that I think France has prevented around a quarter to a third of boats being able to sail across the English Channel this year. So while numbers are high, the government is suggesting they would be significantly higher if that deal that's already in place with France was not working. I suspect we'll see an extension to that deal. It means more money to France. We think we're going to see a meeting, actually, between Suella Braverman and the French Interior Minister at some point this autumn. And there is also agreements across the benches, actually, from Labour to the Conservative Party, about one of the big key factors in all of this is trying to speed up application time. Because at the moment meant to take 6 months, it can take years, up to 2.5 years, for asylum applications to be processed, which is an extraordinary length of time. It is not a surprise then that lots of people are stuck in hotel rooms because they are simply waiting on civil servants in Whitehall and elsewhere to process their claims. Now, the government recognised that that needs to be sped up. There's much talk about trying to do it specifically initially for Albanians who arrive here, that it could be done within days, and those whose asylum applications failed could be sent back to Albania. But in the end, the government would also argue, you know, there is no obvious, easy solution to any of this. And all this while the crisis in Kent does continue, if somewhat easing. Ministers this morning insisting, particularly at Manston in northern Kent, where we saw thousands of people held in that processing plant in the last week or so. Only made a whole 1,500, but up to 4,000 have been there. That those numbers are starting to drop, that hundreds have been moved on to temporary accommodation, whether that be more hotel rooms or short-term accommodation. But frankly, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick Paul, saying this morning that if they see a large number of people again cross the Channel today, those numbers will simply increase, because these are the initial processing centres that those migrants, those asylum seekers, those illegal migrants, a whole mixed bag of people will arrive. So it is not easy, it's intractable, it is clearly something that every predecessor to Suella Braverman, whether it be Priti Patel, Theresa May, Amber Rudd, has struggled with in the last decade or so, though it is notable, and we should note, that while the figures this year are extraordinarily high at around 40,000, they are well below some of the numbers that we saw in the early 2000s under Tony Blair, when asylum applications almost reached 100,000, and the well below comparable figures that we find in other European countries, notably France, has got a similar population. It has asylum applications well over 100,000 in the last year. So the figures are high relative for the UK, but when you look elsewhere in Europe, this is a problem, a challenge that other countries are facing. Frankly, it must be said, with much higher numbers too.
Darren, just quickly, I just want to ask your opinion about some of the comments that Junior Minister Robert Jenrick made, appearing to criticise Suella Braverman for her use of the word invasion, saying that he would never demonise people seeking a better life. Some commentators saying that what he said actually is worse than anything the opposition could say, the kind of blue-on-blue criticism. And we saw criticism, didn't we, from Kemi Badenoch of Suella Braverman during the party conference when she said her language about coups was unhelpful. I mean, is there a problem that some of the language that Suella Braverman could use causes rifts among senior members of the party?
Yeah, indeed, and we heard that from other people. The Prime Minister's spokesperson wouldn't be drawn on whether the Prime Minister would use the word invasion. I'm sure if there is a camera put in front of him, soon he'll be asked that question. Now, the government's official line is Suella Braverman was simply explaining the scale of the challenge, but there is discomfort within the Conservative Party about the use of provocative language. We saw an attack on an asylum processing centre in Kent over the weekend. Some claim it's incendiary language. William Hague yesterday argued, even though this is a massive problem for the country, an invasion is what Russia's done to Ukraine. Is it comparable? He would say it really is not. However, Suella Braverman is using this language because it helps her politically. She wants to be seen to be tough on migration. She wants to use provocative language and not pussyfoot around the issue. She would argue it's an accurate description. There are many of her supporters, I'm sure there are many of our viewers, who'd feel it is an accurate description. For other people, they feel it is simply way too provocative on a sensitive issue that involves actual human beings. In the end, this is politics. It's a debate. There's no actual right answer to any of this. But yes, there is a sense within the Conservative Party, certain sections of the Conservative Party, not everyone, that maybe that language is unhelpful. For others, it's the language they would argue that needs to be used because, frankly, they would say it reflects the situation on the grounds.
OK, Darren, thank you very much indeed.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to former Chief Immigration Officer Kevin Saunders. Morning to you, Kevin. How can the government get a grip on this?
Good morning. Well, the only thing we can do is to try and stop the people coming from northern France on the boats and get rid of the Albanians as quickly as possible.
People coming in from France, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Everybody's been trying.
We've been trying since, we've been trying for ages to stop it. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so breathing is a bit difficult at times.
Oh dear, I'm sorry. I hope you're okay.
No, what we need to do, we need to get rid of these Albanians. Germany and Sweden are just refusing to accept claims. We can do the same thing.
But we have to house them, I suppose, somewhere until we can reject those claims once they're on British soil. So what do you do when you've got overcrowded migration centres, sorting officers? What are they called? These I can't think of the correct terminology for processing centres. That was it. Like Manston. Where are you supposed to accommodate them? I mean, the Dutch have put people on cruise ships, haven't they?
Yes, and so have the Scots as well. The Scots have got Ukrainian refugees on cruise liners. So I don't see a problem with that at all. In fact, I would go a little bit further and put it in international waters in the Channel, put all Albanians on it and then remove them.
Kevin, lots of charities are saying that the government should open up legal routes to apply for asylum abroad, perhaps. Maybe if you want to apply for asylum and you're in Europe, you go to a British embassy, you apply there, and then that would stop people trying to make that crossing on the Channel. What do you reckon?
it wouldn't stop them, because if you're refused, then you're still going to try and get into the country illegally.
And just finally, what would your reaction be to some of the comments the Red Cross have made? They're saying they're extremely concerned about the escalating humanitarian situation at centres like Manston, and have called for the government to urgently look at ways of reducing the backlog of asylum decisions. I mean, do you think, in your view, from what you've seen anyway, that there is a humanitarian element to all of this that has to be taken seriously?
Well, certainly there was a problem at Manston. Nobody can deny that. It's a short-term holding facility, which certainly over the weekend became a long-term holding facility. They've now moved people out of there, thank goodness, and so hopefully Manston will get back to what it's supposed to do and just hold people for 24 hours. But with the numbers that are arriving at the moment, they've got to be processed somewhere.
OK. Look, listen, good to get your thoughts. Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force at Calais. Thanks very much indeed. I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
Do get in touch with us. Lots of you have been getting in touch with us about the problems with migration at the moment and the Channel crossings.
Yes, Tom says, when a large... Oh, you've read that one. Why are our politicians burying their heads in the sand, says Dave. And Stephen says, the attack on Braverman's out of order. She's saying words the majority of the public are saying. It's only the political bubble that ignores the public. Let us know your views this morning.
Yep, gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is 8:20. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning.
Potentially thousands of corrupt officers may be serving in the police due to vetting failures. The police watchdog has found a culture of misogyny, sexism and predatory behaviour towards female police officers, staff and members of the public that is prevalent in many forces.
Basics such as tea bags and milk saw significant price rises in October as food inflation reached a record high of 11.6%. The British Retail Consortium says costs were pushed up due to rising commodity and energy prices and a tight labour market.
A new survey of over 3,000 motorists shows young drivers are delaying car repairs to save money. An RAC poll says 37% of those aged 17 to 24 are delaying fixing their vehicles amid the cost of living crisis. Some 16% of young people are also delaying minor repairs like handbrakes or windscreens. So we've been having a little bit of fun this morning. I've been testing your UK citizenship knowledge because Meghan Markle has been speaking on one of her podcasts talking about how hard the British citizenship test was, that even Prince Harry struggled. You got the first coins to be minted in Britain wrong, didn't you? You said Romans. The answer was the people of the Iron Age. I asked who built the Tower of London. You said William the Conqueror. That was correct.
Yeah.
So I also asked what percentage of the UK population has a parent or grandparent born outside of the UK. You said 20%.
Yeah.
The correct answer is around 10%. Those are according to legal figures, I suppose. We've got no idea with the latest coming in. And then the other question I asked was, when did the Emancipation Act abolish slavery throughout the British Empire? And the answer was 1833.
Right. I'll get my passport. Speaking...
You're out.
Yeah. It is 8:22. Speaking at the Tusk Conservation Awards last night, the Prince of Wales warned that criminal gangs who facilitate wildlife trafficking will face serious consequences.
Yes, each year the event celebrates the work of conservationists, and yesterday marked its 10th anniversary. It was taking place at Hampton Court Palace, and Cameron Walker was there and sent us this report. A warning, it does contain some flash photography.
The criminal gangs facilitating wildlife trafficking, you will face serious consequences.
A cause championed for decades by the Prince of Wales. In a cost of living crisis, it's perhaps easy to forget the threats piling up for Africa's wildlife. But the annual awards last night, hosted by conservation charity Tusk, was a chance for star guests to highlight the work of conservationists across Africa. And the Decade of Awards was championed by both Prince William and his cousin Peter Phillips. Alumni have since gone on to bring poaching levels to near zero in an area of Kenya, and elephant death rates have been reduced by 66% in Zambia between 2018 and 2020. Tusk's boss, Charlie Mayhew, thinks protecting wildlife is very important to the Prince of Wales.
Right from day one in 2005, when he became our patron, he has always demonstrated a deep passion for the continent, its people and its wildlife. His determination to try and do what he can to elevate the debate on the illegal wildlife trade, and through his initiative United for Wildlife, he's been amazing.
Chile's Biarujanga received the Prince William Award for a lifetime of conservation work. He's helped transform wetlands into a birdwatcher's paradise, engaging locals in the benefits of tourism. As a boy, he was arrested 5 times for causing a nuisance, but what was once considered a crime is now a conservation career.
One of the things that we had to do was to train young people as guides, those who would be guiding tourists. And now it is a movement. Other people have taken it over, and it is providing employment to many young men and women who are deriving benefit out of that.
Prince William also stressed the need to help locals during his speech. Today, His Royal Highness is bringing together conservationists from last night's awards for a special meeting at St James's Palace, all united in a common cause, helping locals improve their livelihoods so they in turn can protect the animals who live around them. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Look, stay with us. We're just hours away from finding out the winners of the all-important awards, the one and only World Cheese Awards. We'll be speaking to one of the judges after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 8:29. Still to come on today's programme.
What is the secret to bringing up a successful child? Maybe we shouldn't even say that.
What's the definition of a successful child?
Maybe it's better to just say a happy child, a content child.
No, she would not agree. The so-called godmother of Silicon Valley would not agree. That is Esther Wojcicki, whose daughters have gone on to become doctors and CEOs. We'll be talking to her about all of that.
And as Matt Hancock prepares for his I'm a Celebrity stint, we'll ask his former Labour counterpart, Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting, what he makes of the controversial career move. Is it a career move? Maybe a temporary holiday.
Oh, it could well be a career move into reality TV. Let us know your thoughts this morning. Lots of you have. And to be honest, let us know your thoughts on this next segment, which might have something to do with what is next to me here. Cheese.
Cheesy lover.
Oh, gosh, trust you.
We're talking about cheese because, of course, there is, there's a world-famous international tournament coming up. It is the World Cheese Awards, not the World Cup, taking place this week in Newport in Wales.
Much more up my street, I've got to be honest. The competition is the biggest of its kind. Over 4,000 cheeses are competing for the top spot.
Yeah, we've even got with us some cheeses that we're going to try with the help of cheese connoisseur and World Cheese Award judge Charlie Turnbull, who joins us now. Morning to you, Charlie.
Morning as well.
How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. I fortunately not had too much breakfast because some of us will be eating up to 100 cheeses today.
Wow, I have to say, you have the best job in the world. I mean, do you actually look forward to a day like today, or does that actually, even for a cheese obsessor, is that a bit much?
No, I absolutely love it. This is Christmas come early. It's not just about the cheeses. There are 250 judges from 38 countries, and this is the only time of year that I get to meet a lot of people who are my sort of close friends. So this is the big gathering of the big cheeses.
Yeah, exactly. and obviously there are countries that are known for cheese, ourselves, France, the Netherlands, Switzerland. Are there cheeses from random countries that you'd never think they would produce their own cheese?
Oh, without question. So of the 4,434 cheeses, just over 800 are from outside the European area, so about 20%. But that is growing really fast. 7 years ago, it was 2 or 3%. And we're seeing Kazakhstan, we're seeing Japan. Japan makes amazing cheeses. We've seen Indian cheeses arrive, big cheeses from South America. So yeah, there are some things popping up all over the place.
Wow.
So what would you look for? And we've got a little plate, a little selection that our producers just popped across the road and bought for us this morning. They've managed to get them to room temperature. We have a truffle cheddar, a mango and ginger Stilton, which is in the middle, and then your classic Stilton. I have to say the fruity one in the middle, to me, is an abomination. There shouldn't be fruit in cheese, but that's my own view. What would you go for to try, first of all, if you were with us in the studio?
All the cheeses you've got there are quite strong cheeses. So the blue has obviously got that pungency from the mould, which is going to be probably the strongest of the three. But that note of truffle is also going to be quite punchy. So I would start with the sweeter in the middle, the mango and Stilton. Stilton without the blue carries fruit really well.
Stilton without the blue, I didn't know was possible. I thought blue was
surely,
Stilton.
I thought that's what made it the Stilton, yeah.
No, absolutely not. So there is a protected food name, like a PDO, what they used to call an AOC in France, for white and blue Stilton. So they're both old cheeses for us. The oldest cheese in the UK is probably Cheshire, and Stilton is very close to that. They both predate the Normans in our history. So these are old. That Stilton you're tasting, that a mango is a modern take on it, but the Stilton itself is historic.
Pleasantly surprised I am by the sweetness in that. Would you be a classicist who wouldn't really like to see fruit in the Stilton, or you welcome the innovation?
Well, if you want to talk about innovation, have a look at this chap.
Okay.
My camera.
That's cheese?
Oh, wow.
That is cheese. So what we're seeing in cheese, and this is global, and there's some really, really good examples going on in London right now of people innovating with cheese. With sort of that classic 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future kind of approach, where they're using all the heritage and knowledge of this country's fantastic cheese-making community and go, well, what do we do next? What do we do next? And that, what you're looking at, the fruit combination has been around with us about 25 years, 30 years, and that has been really big. And we're looking for the next big thing right now.
Yeah, can you submit vegan cheeses to the awards?
That is what let's call a live discussion, let's put it in that way. At the moment, this is the World Cheese Awards, and for technical reasons, you're not allowed to call vegan cheese cheese. So it's not there at the moment, but it's my guess that it's on its way.
Yeah, and best things to go with cheese. We were having this discussion earlier, and some people like things like quince jelly. I'm more of a digestive and Stilton man.
I certainly respect the digestive. I like it with brie, if I'm going to be honest. Digestive is a classic. Quince is a Spanish thing, and it tends to come through on those sheep's milk cheeses like Manchego, which is great matching. But if I'm going to be really honest, the best thing to have with cheese is either more cheese or good company, and start there and let it evolve.
Charlie, what about wine? Sorry, you can't have cheese without wine. Cheese, wine and good company. I'm going to have to say... Go on.
This is a breakfast show. I didn't know we were going here straight away. But yes, open a bottle. I don't know if you keep one under your desk.
What about, we talk about, obviously, in a pure form, we're talking about crackers or whatever it might be. But actually pasta, I associate. I mean, this truffle cheddar, I just want to slather over some macaroni. Be lovely.
Cooking completely changes the way cheese tastes. I mean, even grating it, most of your viewers know that weird experience of grating cheese, and it tastes better, which is great. So any kind of change of cheese will change the way it hits your mouth. Cheese, when you're a professional judge, you need to understand that the way you chew changes the character of the cheese, and you need to give cheese time. All the flavors, all the complex flavors are actually dissolved in the fat of cheese. So you need to be able to masticate, to give it that technical term, to allow the flavors rise up into the body of the mouth, and then you actually do most of your tasting through the nose. And that gives you all the flavors, like truffle and that is only tasted through the nose, not the mouth. So when we judge professionally, we have a process of taking us through the look, the texture, the aroma, and then into the mouthfeel, and then into the flavor to give the whole spectrum of the cheese before you judge it, because you need to make sure it has its moment.
Low-fat cheeses, any flavour in those?
A lot less. It's not their fault. Lots of people want to reduce their fat. I'm not getting at that. I'm just saying that it's a lot more difficult to get flavour, retain flavour is a better word, in low-fat cheese.
Just very quickly, Charlie, Liz Truss is known to be a big cheese fan. I don't suppose she's a celebrity judge this year?
We've got Marcus Brigstock, which is much better.
Awesome. Well, if you're looking for any more, give me a call. I would love to be a cheese judge.
I've got a question for you, Paul. What is the most popular cheese in Britain to keep your passport?
Oh, go on.
It is cheddar.
It is cheddar.
Is this chat?
Beautiful.
That is fantastic. Just and finally, if you make any cheese-based jokes at the World Cheese Awards, are you automatically removed by security?
No, it's a full competition. It's a side competition. The best cheese joke, they got to wear a crown for the rest of the day.
Right, but you must have heard them all, right? All the cheese jokes. There can't be a new one.
Oh, there are still tons to go.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Brilliant. You've done that before. Charlie Turnbull, we've got to go. We've got to go. We love talking to you. We've thoroughly enjoyed that. And I'm going to persuade Paul to try this truffle cheddar. He's refusing so far.
Yeah.
Make him.
Good
love
to see you, Charlie.
Have fun today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
There you go.
Try
Charlie.
it, Paul.
Charlie,
on live television.
Charlie, the big cheese. And to spare you watching me eat cheese...
You're not going to do it, are you?
Let's go to a commercial break, yeah. And after the other side of that, we'll have the papers with Eamonn and David.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television and online, across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
It is 8:41. Let's go through this morning's papers then with former Chief Secretary for the Treasury, David Mellor, and environmental campaigner Amy Cameron. Morning to both of you. Amy, let's start with page 7 of The Guardian. Labour refers Braverman to watchdog. This is all just a bit of a political stunt, really.
I really don't think that is the case. So we're talking now about Home Secretary who was forced to resign under very confusing circumstances, but a mere 2 weeks ago, I think, Isabel Braverman was forced to resign from a position which I think we cannot overstate the importance of the Home Secretary in terms of both the departments that she oversees, the policy that she leads on, and the information to which she has access. So this story is about not just the email leak that we know she was forced to resign for, but a further 6 instances of her sending emails from her private official email address to her personal email address so that she can then pass them on to others. And I think it's one, like, there's so many things within this. One, I think it's really important to remember the context of this in the furore around her ramping up anti-migrant sentiment, because we have to recognise that this is a politician that is on the ropes. So Isabel Braverman has faced huge criticism from her own party since she was put back into post as Home Secretary.
Her own party.
Yes, but those voices have been vocal and they have been harsh. Labour are not having to level punches at Isabel Braverman because people on her own side are already doing that. And what happens when you get a politician who's desperate to cling to power in a position like she is they turn to distractionary tactics. And she is using desperate people as effectively a human shield for their own incompetence, in my
Desperate
opinion.
people.
Yes,
all
desperate
these people from Albania are desperate. It's nonsense.
There are huge numbers
And
of
also,
people trapped in our migration and refugee system, the majority of which
that
are
may
found
be,
to have successful
but the ones
refugee
that are
claims.
particularly upsetting to people is 40,000 people arriving. They've no reason to arrive. They come from a safe country. You know, the trouble with this, a lot of these discussions take place without anyone having any knowledge of the law. The law is quite clear on this. You have the right as a refugee to present yourself in a safe place and say you want you want to be taken in and given asylum. What you don't have the right to do is travel halfway across Europe through some...
Yeah, but you can't claim asylum until you get to the UK.
Till you get,
Yes,
how would we have anyone claim asylum here?
But the argument is that they should claim asylum at the first safe place that they arrive
But the fact, I think there's something like 78% of UK asylum applications are granted, are successful, which suggests that there is a legitimate reason for them to stay here, whether it's linked to the UK or not. I mean, interesting comparison, though. Yeah, the interesting comparison: Spain only accepts 11% of the asylum applications that it receives. I wonder why there is such a big discrepancy.
But I was
there.
actually...
But go on.
Sorry.
I wanted to say on Suella Braverman's language. I mean, do you think she is stoking and inflaming language, or do you think she's actually tapping in to quite a populist view?
Yes, she's tapping into a populist view, which she probably holds. You see, if we forget about the politics of this, because if you had any senior Labour person on, they wouldn't be able to agree that they like the idea of 40,000 people coming across the Channel, bypassing all of the rules. So, you know, that's an unnecessary party political thing. But I was actually going to agree on some of this. Look, I'm sorry, it sounds so pompous. I spent 5 years at the Home Office. The Home Office deals in secrets. And there were secrets that even I, as a Home Office minister of some standing and the right-hand person to 3 Home Secretaries, I wasn't allowed to know a lot of the stuff that the Home Secretary personally knew. And a lot of the stuff would be headlines everywhere if it came out. Now, you cannot have somebody who uses a private mobile phone to distribute information doing that job.
She said in admitting to those 6 breaches of the Ministerial Code, none of those emails contain top-secret information, classified information. Yes, she shouldn't have done it. Yes, she broke the Ministerial Code, but she's made mistakes. That wasn't confidential material. She's learned from those mistakes.
But they aren't mistakes.
And she's been briefed on how to use IT properly now. I made a mistake, hands up.
But they aren't mistakes, are they? Mistakes suggest something that you do by accident. These weren't accidents. This was something that she was actively doing to circumvent the security protocols that are in place. We've just heard for Liz Truss that her phone is apparently now being kept in a sort of secure environment because it's so heavily hacked. So I think, exactly to David's point, the level of information that a Home Secretary has access to is beyond our comprehension. It is not for Suella Braverman to decide what is or is not confidential information. She is nicknamed Leaky Sue. That is a nickname that she holds.
By critics.
People in that position should not be in the position of
I
Home
actually
Secretary.
quite like her straightforwardness, and I think there's
a lot of people do.
Yeah, she's also nicknamed
I like her
Superstar
straightforwardness, but I think the big mistake was putting her straight back in. But look, I mean, this is far too long a conversation. How long have we got here?
I'm being urged to move on to another story.
Just to say very, very quickly, you know, the first Home Secretary I worked under, William Whitelaw, was well in his 50s when he took on the job of Home Secretary and had been very experienced in all kinds of things. He knew the ropes. These days, a politician can be elected in the morning, become Home Secretary in the afternoon and be sacked in the evening. Okay. You know, there are far too many people of no experience. How can it be that you can become Home Secretary and people don't take you through what's expected of you in terms of the control of information? And, of course, in our day, sadly, there wasn't all that, you know, all this sort of modern technology. And so it was much easier to keep things quiet. Much easier. But I feel sorry for her, really.
Yeah,
but
do you feel sorry for Matt Hancock? Do you feel sorry for Matt Hancock this morning? He's making a lot of the papers.
Every single paper.
Yeah.
Well,
front page.
I think the trouble with Matt Hancock is that, I mean, I'm sure he's quite a gifted person, and what he needs to do is just to keep his head down and do useful work. What he can't do is use his notoriety, for that's what it is, to make 350 grand or whatever it is. The papers say 350 grand, and they might, nevertheless, the facts in the papers might still be true.
Yeah.
And basically, 350 grand looks like he's exploiting his own, well, I was going to say ineptitude, something along those lines. And how does he think that people in his constituency and people in the rest of the country are going to really agree with all of this? They won't.
OK, look, we have to leave it there. It was a very brief one because we overran on the cheese. But Amy, Cameron...
How much of that did you eat? I've been looking at that
I
place.
did, I must say.
And no one offered me any.
Well, there is
Sorry,
some
the cheese was more important.
David and I are fine, but let's let the cheese out front.
Absolutely, that's our lead this morning. Guys, thank you so much. See you again very soon. But we have to move on now to this next story, which will be really interesting if you're a parent.
Yeah, if you are, you've likely spent a lot of time wondering how to raise your kids, which parenting style to take, and how to turn them into successful adults.
Well, Esther Wojcicki claims to have the answers. She's the mother of 3 daughters, one of whom is a professor, another the founder of 23andMe, and the third the CEO of YouTube, no less. So, Susan Wojcicki, that's her daughter, Esther's even written a book with all her top tips on how to raise ambitious adults.
Yeah, and she joins us now to share her advice. Morning to you, Esther. I'm interested in the word success. I'm interested in the word successful because it feels like that puts a lot of pressure on children and it's quite a subjective term.
Well, thank you for asking that question. So I think successful means, in my book, that the child or the adult at this point feels supported in whatever their goal is or their passion is in life. So they don't necessarily have to make a bundle of money. They have to feel like they are living what they want to live and that they are supported emotionally and have enough money to, have a car and a house and whatever else is necessary. So yes, there's a picture of all 3 of my daughters, Susan, Janet, and Anne. Yeah. And needless to say, as a mother, I'm very proud of them. And what I'm doing these days is trying to help everybody have successful kids or adults.
So by successful, you're saying they are happy with who they are, and as long as they have enough to live a happy life, then that's all that matters.
Right. Well, they're doing something that actually makes a difference to them. So, a passion of some kind that they are able to pursue, and they feel supported in that passion. And most people actually today are working at jobs that they don't like at all. And they're only waiting to get out of those jobs as soon as possible. And so the goal would be really to have people do kinds of jobs where they actually care about what they're doing and it somehow improves the world.
What about if I suggested to you that actually this is really nothing to do with your parenting? It was just that you had gifted kids. I mean, I as a parent, I look around at a group of, children, and I often can see parents that have got an easy gig. Their kids want to learn. They sit at the front of the class. They're eager. They're hungry. They're everything every parent wants in their child. And then you've got parents who've got difficult children for whatever reason it might be, who don't want to read the book. They don't want to do it. They just want to sit and watch the TV. It's a lot harder for those parents. I mean, can you take all the credit for your daughter's success?
Well, that's actually also a very good question. And I would like to say that there is they do have good genes. That is, of course, if I consider my genes also good genes. But they were normal little girls. They were not anything special when they were little. As you can see here in this picture, that's with my husband. They got into all the same trouble everybody else did. In school, they were not exactly excited about some of the projects that they had to do. I think one of the things that I gave them was a way to deal with the world when it wasn't going exactly the way they wanted to. So I think one of the most important things parents can help kids do is learn how to cope when they don't have what they need to have or what they want to have. So, and that usually is like at least 50% of the time. And so you have to learn to do the things that you might not want to learn to do, but they're required. And so that's what I think. I help them cope with life as it is, not as life as they wished it would be.
And you talk in your book about the sort of modern parenting technique of helicopter parenting that we see so much in the West, this kind of hovering over your child so that they're sort of wrapped in cotton wool. How can parents, I mean, that's done with the best of intentions, I'm sure, from many parents. But what do you think is the impact of that in the development of the child and their future success?
So all the studies on helicopter parenting show that it disempowers the child, because what's happening is that you step in as the parent with the best of intentions to try to help your child be successful. And, you know, maybe that's okay to do it once or twice to just get them on the right track. But after that, when you keep stepping in all the time, what you're doing is disempowering them. They feel like they need to have you or need to have some support in order to do it, whatever it happens to be. And kids, all the studies show that kids that have helicopter parents tend to be much more anxious. They have more health problems. They have more drinking problems. They don't perform as well in college when they're on their own. So there's a lot of negative effects of helicopter parenting. And I think it's really important for everyone to realize, if they just stop and think, if you are always helped to do something, how comfortable would you be if you had to do it on your own? So that's one of the most important things that I think parents can think about. And you need to give your child an opportunity to do things around the house that are meaningful. Could be things like making their own breakfast, or learning how to make their own lunch and pack it into a lunchbox if they still have that kind of thing. But, you know, to be more self-sufficient. The more self-sufficient a child is, the more empowered they feel and the calmer they are about dealing with their environment.
Yeah.
So that's my main message.
Well, Esther Wojcicki, really interesting to talk to you. Book that you have published is called How to Raise Successful People, talking to us from Stanford University this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, that's some really good
Pleasure.
advice
Thank you.
From Esther at the end.
Yeah, although if you don't have good genes, what do you do? You know,
Well,
what if you, I mean, I look at my kids are completely different. I parent them the same. One of them, I think, is probably going to have a very different life from the other. Don't know.
Yeah, my mum's asking where she can get a copy of that book. After the break, we'll be speaking to the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, as NHS bosses appeal for an extra £7 billion to tackle the health service backlog. More on that in just a moment.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hancock defends his decision to appear on I'm a Celebrity as Downing Street joins the chorus of criticism.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock, it's Wednesday the 2nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Paul Hawkins.
Your top story this morning then, Matt Hancock. He said that his decision to join I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is part of an attempt to reach people outside of Westminster and show the human side of politics.
Downing Street last night hit out at the former Health Secretary with a spokesperson saying MPs should be working hard during this challenging time.
Elsewhere this morning, the suspect in the Dover firebomb attack has been named as Andrew Leake from High Wycombe. Although the incident has not been declared as terrorism, officers say it was likely driven by hate.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of corrupt police officers may be serving in England and Wales. That's according to a damning new report condemning poor vetting standards within the force. It's been called as a wake-up call for chief constables.
And Prince William attended the Tusk Awards last night for the first time as the Prince of Wales. The charity, which he has supported since 2005, highlights the work of conservation leaders in Africa.
And we love to hear from you throughout the programme. Keep those thoughts coming in. gbviews at gbnews.uk.
Our top story then, Matt Hancock saying that his appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here will be a way to reach out to the politically disengaged, adding that he hopes to show the human side of MPs.
Downing Street last night became the latest to criticise the former Health Secretary's decision, with a spokesperson saying that MPs should be working hard in Parliament or their constituencies at such a difficult time.
The group representing COVID-bereaved families also rebuked Hancock, saying on Twitter that his appearance is sickening and that ITV should do the decent thing and remove him from the programme.
It follows his suspension as a Conservative MP. Well, earlier we went to his constituency to see what they thought.
Is the country fantastic, going well? Is it? No. So he's leaving his job to go to do this. And he's earning 80 grand, I think?
I think it's nearer 400.
Exactly. So what he's doing, he shouldn't be in this job.
I'm quite shocked that he's going. It could make him, or it could break him.
I'm not particularly impressed, no. When we vote for MPs, they should be here doing their work for us, and everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people have lost faith in that for quite a long time now, so.
I don't think he should be doing it. It's not good for the public's image, to be quite honest, so yeah, I think it's time for him to call it a day and move on to some new pastures.
So that's what his constituents thought in Suffolk. Earlier we spoke to political editor of Tortoise, Kat Needham.
we know that MPs frequently, they have second jobs, they spend a lot of time, parliamentary time, away from both Westminster and their constituencies. So is there a bit of sort of, he's being treated slightly differently to some of his colleagues, for example. I mean, last year there was a big sort of hoo-ha about Geoffrey Cox's outside earnings representing the British Virgin Islands. You could argue that he's not representing his constituents there. Matt Hancock's only away for 2 or 3 weeks. So, in the wider scheme of things, are they being represented less than Geoffrey Cox's constituents? That's a question that has kind of got a, kind of wider debate around it. And obviously second jobs has been discussed quite a lot, and the decision has been taken to allow MPs to continue to do that.
But I suppose Geoffrey Cox, who's the former Attorney General, a lot of people would say he could do that work concurrently, couldn't he, whilst doing his constituency work? A lot of MPs are GPs, whatever else it might be. But to be on the other side of the world, in the jungle, uncontactable, with the rest of the world, I mean, should he at least perhaps return his salary for the time that he's in there, or donate it to charity? Or do you think really this is just people...
I think it's an optics thing. I think it's an optics thing. If he was doing something that was quote-unquote serious, there wouldn't have been quite such the sort of outrage. Because it's a sort of TV entertainment show, particularly at a time when people are struggling, it doesn't feel quite right. Now, optics are important in politics, of course, but they are not the only thing. And to sort of have, like, as we were saying, Boris Johnson on a sun lounger a couple of weeks ago, there was no discussion of him losing the whip over that.
Yeah. What about his point that this helps him to reach out beyond the Westminster bubble to people who are politically disengaged? Is he right?
Possibly. I mean, I think probably a lot of the Westminster bubble will now be watching I'm a Celebrity, who weren't planning to beforehand. Whether he's able to make serious political points in the middle of a jungle whilst eating all sorts of horrible things, I don't know. But certainly that is one argument.
What about those people who say, you know what, he's just been snubbed. He knows he's not going to get into Cabinet again. It was quite obvious, wasn't it? There was that footage of Rishi Sunak doing the handshakes down the line when he got announced as PM and seeing Matt Hancock and turning to Jake Berry instead. He's not very popular at the moment, is he, within the senior Conservative Party?
No,
and he can't get a job on a select committee, so he's thinking, you know what, I'm going to follow the money.
Yes, I think one of his colleagues described him as a prat yesterday, which I think is kind of telling of the sort of wider view of him at the minute. Rishi Sunak's obviously not picked him for a cabinet role this time round, and there probably will be a reshuffle between now and the general election. But, if you've not been picked for this round, you may, think that that's probably it in terms of your frontline politics. So I think what Lembit Kobik was saying earlier about him sort of looking ahead to his future career is probably right.
That was Kat Neelan with her assessment there from Tortoise Media. Now, NHS bosses are appealing for an extra £7 billion to tackle the health service backlog.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, signalled that health spending will be prioritised, while other departments will be forced to make difficult cuts.
Well, Labour has warned that tens of thousands of cancer patients are going undetected and undiagnosed because of the backlog.
Joining us now is the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Morning to you, Shadow Health Secretary.
Good morning.
I assume you welcome this message from the Prime Minister that spending on health has to be prioritised, even when we have this £50 billion black hole in the public finances.
Well, I hope so, because what we know from experience, and I think this is the kind of model of healthcare we have in this country today, is that late diagnosis not only leads to worse outcomes for patients, but it's more expensive for the taxpayer. And I think, to the heart of the NHS's challenge, yes, investment is needed. Labour's committed to one of the biggest expansions of the NHS workforce in history, funded by abolishing the non-dom tax status. But if the answer is only pouring ever-increasing amounts of taxpayer money into a 20th century model of care, then the NHS won't exist in the 21st century. And so we've got to move from where we are today, which is late diagnosis, worse outcomes, more expensive costs for the taxpayer, to one that gets there much earlier with faster, earlier diagnosis, which means more effective and less expensive treatment, making sure that the money that is going into the NHS is being spent wisely with maximum impact for the best patient outcomes.
We're told Amanda Pritchard, the Chief Executive of the NHS, is giving a speech today in which she'll be highlighting record numbers in this country receiving treatment for some types of cancer after thousands of misdiagnoses during the pandemic. Obviously, as you're saying, there are still many going unrecognised and undetected and untreated. How would you work then? How would Labour work to bring down those waiting lists?
So the workforce investment is really important. Because unless you've got a plan for the workforce, you don't have a plan for the NHS. And we set out a big recruitment plan. Jeremy Hunt, actually, who's obviously now Chancellor, was the Health and Social Care Select Committee chair. When he was in that role, he said the smartest governments nick the best ideas of their political opponents. So I would urge Jeremy Hunt later this month to nick Labour's policy, get it going now so we can start that recruitment. We also need to look at keeping the staff that we have in the NHS. Lots of doctors leaving the profession for no other reason than the pension rules create a financial disincentive.
But with respect, it's not a new idea, is it, to try and recruit new doctors and nurses, or indeed to try and retain the ones that are there? I mean, subsequent administrations have tried to do that for years. What's new in what you're suggesting?
They haven't been investing. Doubling the number of medical school places at university this summer. We saw people turned away with straight A's, and worse still, 3,000 fewer medicine places at university this summer in the middle of a workforce crisis. That's how bad things are. So I understand what you're saying. The idea of recruiting and retaining staff isn't revolutionary. It would be revolutionary today because of the degree of mismanagement and the fact we haven't had an NHS workforce plan in this country since 2003. That's an absurd position to be in. So recruiting people is important. Fixing the doctors' pensions rules so we don't lose people early, that will make a difference. £500 million has been allocated by the government to deal with delayed discharges in hospitals. This is cases where people are well enough to leave hospital, but there isn't the social care in the community there. £500 million allocated, not a penny of that for this winter has left the door of the Department of Health. It's November, and when we asked the Minister yesterday, why is this money not out the door? She said, well, I've only been in for a few days. Now, I appreciate that's true in her case, but her government has been in for 12 years, and I think what we're seeing are very practical examples of the chaos in the Conservative Party in recent months and years, having real-life consequences for patients. So Labour's got a plan that would deal with some of those immediate issues that we could deal with, practical issues that we could deal with today, as well as the right long-term plan, and the Conservatives are welcome to help themselves. I would love to see our policies being implemented ahead of a general election, but I hope the Conservatives have got the humble pie and humility to do that in the interest of the country. So
as a Shadow Health Secretary, obviously you'd like to see health spending prioritised. Where would a Labour government make the cuts to make sure the public finances add up elsewhere?
Well, we'll see where we are come the general election in terms of what the overall economic backdrop looks like and what the fiscal consequences are. But I can tell you what the consequences are now as a member of the Shadow Cabinet. I and other members of the Shadow Cabinet regularly send in proposals to Rachel Reeves, our Shadow Chancellor, with a range of policies that we know would make a real difference to people's lives, and we explain how much they will cost. And in the overwhelming majority of cases, the answer we get from Rachel Reeves is either no or not now, because she can't guarantee that the money will be there to fund those policies. So it may well be as a result of the Conservatives crashing the... It may be the...
What I want to say, Wes, is that's a really interesting point you've mentioned there about going to Rachel Reeves and saying, look, where are the figures for this? Because what I'm confused about is Labour say they have a costed plan, but then when you ask them for the figures, they say, well, we need to wait until the next election. So which is it? Do you have a costed plan, or do you not have a costed plan and you're waiting until the next election for the figures?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. So where we are making specific pledges, we're showing where that money would come from. So with our NHS workforce expansion, that will be funded by abolishing the non-dom tax status. So we show how much it would cost and where the money will come from. In terms of overall public spending, until we're closer to a general election, it won't be clear what the fiscal outlook is, because so much depends on the economy. And that's, by the way, why what Rachel has been doing as Shadow Chancellor is putting together a serious plan for economic growth. Because if the economy had grown under the Conservatives by as much as it had under the last Labour government, there would be £30 billion to spend on public services or to give back to people through tax cuts without having to find savings or efficiencies or hiking up taxes elsewhere. There'd just be £30 billion more. So the consequences of a low growth economy is that we have the worst of all worlds, which is high taxes and cuts to public services. That's the broken model. We've got a serious plan for growth, and that's why you've got people like the chairman of Tesco saying that when it comes to a serious plan for growth, Labour's the only team on the pitch.
Wes, I want to ask you about the findings of Sir Lindsay Hoyle yesterday, saying that he saw no evidence of bullying during that fracking vote that infamously, well, some argue, brought down the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, resigning the following morning. Can I ask, do you think it was a Labour fabrication?
No, I think there were legitimate concerns about what we observed in the voting lobbies. And by the way, there were lots of Conservatives who were off the record very unhappy about the way in which that vote played out. I think complaints and concerns were raised in good faith. The Speaker has looked at this. He's gathered witness statements, asked Conservative MPs involved what happened, and he's concluded that there were no breach of parliamentary rules. So I think we accept that. I think that regardless of the Speaker's ruling, I think everyone involved in the vote that evening would accept that the sorts of argy-bargy we saw really is not really professional conduct, and that we don't really want to see a repeat of those sorts of scenes again. And I think it was a reflection of the kind of chaos that we saw that ultimately led to the downfall of the Prime Minister.
Just before we let you go, Shadow Health Secretary, you're a bit of a celebrity. Do you fancy eating bugs on TV?
I am not a celebrity, and politicians are not celebrities. We are people in a privileged position actually, given to us by constituents who put their trust and faith to send us to Parliament, to act on their behalf, to serve their interests. That's what we should be doing. I think Matt Hancock, the danger of the choice he's made is that it doesn't just reflect badly on him. People who tune in to watch that programme will think he's representative of politicians more generally, and I don't think that's fair, actually. What I can tell you on a unifying cross-party note, and we've had lots of division in Westminster behind me, we will all be hitting the phones to make sure that Matt Hancock gets more than his fair share of Bush-Tucker trials and crawling through creepy crawlies.
It's democracy.
It's the least he deserves.
It's democracy.
And just very quickly, you felt the same way when Kezia Dugdale, the former Scottish Labour leader, appeared on I'm a Celebrity in 2017?
Yeah, Kez is a good friend of mine. I've known her for many years. I thought it was the wrong thing to do, and I think it was wrong then. I think it's wrong now. And the argument that's been made that this is about reaching a different audience, you know, I don't have a problem with politicians going on all sorts of light entertainment programmes and places where you reach a slightly different audience. I think politics has turned a lot of people off, and we've got a lot of work to do to rebuild trust. But it's such a big commitment of time in another country, detached from the real world, and you can see whether it's Matt Hancock's constituents or indeed the COVID bereaved families that are feeling aggrieved. You know, I think he's let himself down, but I think he's also let political life down as well.
You're not a celebrity, so we're going to let you get out of there. All right.
Get
me out of here, yeah.
Yeah, Wes Streeting, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very
Interesting.
much.
It's a whole other argument whether or not you think politicians are celebrities. Of course, Donald Trump, famously the leader of the free world, a celebrity himself through reality TV.
GB Views at gbnews.uk if you want to get involved in that conversation, react to that interview with the Shadow Health Secretary. It's 16 minutes past 9. A new report out today has condemned poor police vetting standards, with hundreds, if not thousands, of corrupt police officers in England and Wales.
Well, today, serving Met Police Officer PC Jonathan Cobban and former MPS Officer Joel Borders will be sentenced after both were found guilty of sending grossly offensive and inappropriate messages in a WhatsApp group chat that Sarah Everard's killer Wayne Couzens was also a member of. Well, our Home Security Editor Mark White joins us in the studio for more. I mean, this is a really damning watchdog report, Mark, but I suppose how many more of these reports is it going to take before we see change? It's almost unsurprising now.
Well, I think, to be fair, what is happening is a process in the sense that after the very shocking murder of Sarah Everard, there were a series of reports that were commissioned, and that's what we're seeing the results of. So that's why it appears, if you are a layman or laywoman watching this and these reports, that this is just rampant within the police service. Well, there's certainly a problem within the police service, but the reports are all coming back roughly the same time. Now, what this Inspectorate of Constabulary report has found, they carried out a survey of some 8 police forces, a representative group of the 43 police forces in England and Wales, large forces, small forces in all parts of the country, and they examined hundreds of vetting records, and that shows that the vetting procedures were not robust enough, that they should have weeded out quite a significant number of people who had been involved in criminality, or there was at least intelligence that they were involved in criminality. There was one individual officer who the intelligence was had been involved in breaking into people's homes, threatening them from jewellery to steal their jewellery, had been involved in car chase, drug supply. Intelligence, not convicted, but, you know, strong intelligence around that. That person should never have been allowed into the police service, clearly. Others who are linked to organised crime in the sense that a family member has. Now, the Inspectorate of Constabulary say that they understand that a police force might want to take a risk on someone who, just because a relative is a criminal, doesn't mean they are. And it may be a motivating factor, actually, to make them a better officer because of what they've seen and done. But what he says is that in such circumstances, then those people should be subject to special measures, closer vetting, to make sure that they are actually, you know, behaving themselves when they are in the police service.
What can you tell us about the current vetting procedure itself? How long does it take? How thorough is it? What kind of questions are asked?
Well, clearly not thorough enough, according to the Inspectorate of Constabulary. But it's supposed to be a form that you fill out, giving as much detail as you can about you, your background, contacts, people that can referee on your behalf if approached by the service. And then they're supposed to delve into your background when you're applying to join the police. Then that vetting procedure is reviewed. They're supposed to be reviewed every 10 years. If you're in specially sensitive policing operations, it's supposed to be vetted again and reviewed again every 7 years. But it's just not happening. It's not robust enough, and it needs to be tightened now. The Home Secretary has said this morning that, you know, she hopes that police forces across the country will act on the 43 recommendations that the Inspectorate has made to try to tighten up these procedures.
And it's difficult for... I know I have friends who are serving police officers who keep feeling like the police forces get hammered all the time, the police hammered all the time, and morale is quite low.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And this won't help.
Yeah, morale is low, and part of the reason morale is low is because of what we said right at the very start of this interview, that we've got a raft of different inquiries all coming together at the same time and giving an impression that the service is more corrupt than it probably is. But still, there are lessons to be learned, procedures that need to be tightened up to make sure that bad cops effectively are weeded out or never allowed to join in the first place.
Okay, Mark White, Home Security Editor, thank you very much indeed. We're joined now by the Mail's Andrew Pearce for the rest of today's top stories. And there is really only one top story on the front of every single newspaper.
Honestly,
and that is Matt Hancock. What was the word you wanted to use? We're probably not broadcastable at this time in the morning.
Well, it's 2 words. The second word is head, and the first word begins with D, and it's 4 letters.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is... What an idiot. I honestly, it's one of those jaw-dropping moments in politics, and I actually said, really? Are you serious? He can't be. A former Secretary of State who only this week applied to become the next chairman of the Treasury Common Select Committee, very important committee. It's over for him politically.
Yeah. But do you think he knew that? I mean, he might have been applying, but he was getting the mood music quite clearly. Or if he wasn't, we all were.
and he's doing it to raise money for charity. No, he's doing it to raise money for himself. He'll have to declare every penny he earns in the Commons Register, so we'll know how much he keeps, how much he gives to charity. He wants to raise awareness about dyslexia. What he's raising awareness is what an idiot he is, because he's got a big job to do as an MP. The public inquiry into COVID has just started, and he was the Health Secretary during most of that. And he's going to be chewing various... in Bush Tucker trials. I'm going to vote to keep him in for a few
I
weeks
think
because
that's
we
going
want
to
him
be
to be
interesting.
humiliated.
There will be a bit of a public backlash.
They'll want him to stay in for a bit longer.
I have to say, we have had viewers watching this morning who don't mind the fact that he's appearing on I'm a Celebrity. Stuart says, don't agree with MPs taking time off while Parliament is in session, but if he's looking to give himself some financial security for the future, then good luck to him. Warren in Rugby said if he chooses to put his political career in danger in exchange for thousands of pounds, that is up to him. What a petty-minded nation we've become.
Yeah, but he's got a job to do.
But what about these... I mean, Boris Johnson was in Dominican Republic when he flew back the other day.
Former Prime Minister is exhausted.
OK, so what about... I think he got into trouble... Well, Nadine Dorries, they went into the jungle, but other MPs, the Attorney General, for example, Geoffrey Cox, I know he got into trouble for doing some lawyering for the Caribbean country, I forget which, but there are lots that have other jobs.
Yeah, but he's going to Australia. It's quite a long way away. It's a big time difference too. He's probably only a six-figure, at least £100,000.
Well, the papers are saying 350.
Wow. Well,
do you turn that down, though? I mean,
what do
he
his
sees he's
constituents
doomed.
think about that? And what are people who've lost people during the COVID are going to think about the Health Secretary at the time taking 350,000? Look at the picture on the front of the Telegraph. He's laughing at us. And we're going to be laughing at him, not with him. I hope he realises that.
Yeah, that's probably true. You also want to talk about police corruption. We were just discussing it all with Mark. Really shocking to hear some of the crimes that people were being associated with, investigated for, suspected of.
I know. And also this idea that police officers routinely are stopping attractive women driving in cars just so they can chat them up. There's rapists, there's sexual offenders. The vetting has just fallen apart. They're desperate to get more police officers in blue uniform, of course. But honestly, the public confidence in the police is already at an all-time low. This is not going to do anything at all, is it, really?
Yeah. Suella Braverman, is she past it now?
Yeah, I think she's...
As in, is she safe for now?
I think so. Look, it's a storm in a teacup over her email. I couldn't care less whether she sent the email.
Well, David Mellor was making the point that he was right-hand man to 3 Home Secretaries and he wasn't even privy to what those 3 Home Secretaries knew. And the fact that she's leaky Sue, he thinks was a national...
It was stuff to backbench MPs. It wasn't big state-of-the-art stuff. The reason Liz Truss fired her, remember her,
yes.
by the way, Liz Truss, who was because they had a big fallout over immigration, because the current Home Secretary wants to get to grips with immigration. I think there's too many people coming in. She's right, and that was the Tory manifesto, was to stop illegal immigration, and she thought Liz Truss was wobbly on it.
Has she undermined her argument by using controversial words, or has she played a blinder with her...
She's played a blinder. Tory MPs are thrilled to bits. The public are with
all
her.
of them.
Not all.
Not all of them.
Sir Roger Gale's fuming. The Prime Minister's come out and
Sir
said...
Roger Gale's always fuming. He's known as Grumpy Roger. I like Roger. I've known him for years. But he is known in the team as
Rishi Sunak has come out and said, oh, we are a compassionate country.
Yeah, but let's see what he says at PMQs today.
Yeah.
He won't be... He'll defend his Home Secretary. She's speaking for the silent majority, who are appalled to see 40,000 that we know of have come across the Channel this year illegally. It'll be 50,000 by the end. That's a small town, Isabel. And if you live in Kent and these areas, it must be a nightmare to live there. It's all right for people, posh liberals in Oxford, saying, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible. They haven't got this on their doorstep. And they've got to get to grips with it. And if they don't, they'll lose the election over it, and deservedly so. I mean, they've messed up so much at the moment. We've got a Home Secretary who finally seems she wants to get to grips with it. I probably wouldn't have used the word invasion, but I sympathise with what she's saying.
Just finally, in the Times, Meghan Markle, for a change, whinging about taking the British citizenship exam.
Yeah, Harry helped her, apparently. He wasn't very good at it. That's because we know Harry's not very bright. If he was bright, he wouldn't have married her, in my view. He couldn't get some of the questions, such as which country... When was Queen Victoria on the throne? He didn't know.
There were some tricky ones in there.
Well, yeah. Was Bulgaria part of the wartime coalition? No, Harry, it wasn't. It wasn't involved in the war.
Maybe not that one.
Harry.
You didn't do...
No, I agree.
You gave me questions
I've got
earlier
some
on the
of them
test.
around,
I didn't
we've
get
actually
that
got
one.
to wrap. We've got to wrap.
Who minted the first coins?
Yeah, it was difficult. No,
apparently it wasn't.
Yes, there we go. It was the Iron Age.
Well,
listen, we can analyse PMQs, how Rishi got on. It's his second one tomorrow, because I'm presenting with you tomorrow, our first time together. I'm very excited. Thursday treats, lovely. So that's it from us. As I say, I'll be back with Andrew tomorrow. Up next, it's Tom Harwood with The Briefing.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity